In Naruto, the traveling frog brought back the brilliant fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Genius Hyuga Niji. The blinding sunlight shone in from the window, the alarm rang, and Takashi Shin dragged his tired body to the ninja school. There was basically no one in the school at this time, except for two green figures, who were very enthusiastic, and had already started warm-up training. They were his teachers Might Guy and Rock Lee. In addition, Takashi Shin was the third person to come here, and he stepped forward to greet him respectfully. Teacher K, you are so passionate every day. Youth is about showing off your passion. Takashi, you are not bad either. Although your talent is not as good as Niji and the others, you will eventually make a breakthrough with continuous efforts. Isn't that the case with Rock Lee? In response, he could only smile bitterly and nod. It has been 3 years since he traveled here. In the ninja class, his grades are neither good nor bad, and he is not outstanding in any aspect. The only thing that is recognized is his seriousness, but this is still not as good as Rock Lee. That guy is a real training maniac. He was not qualified to be assigned to the class of those elite jonins. Although he passed the genin exam, his results were not very ideal. He relied on his tenacious willpower to persuade Michael to accept him as a student, and became the 4th person in class 3. As for Kakashi and the others, there was no need to think about it. At this time, people came in one after another. A man with long hair and white eyes, about the same age as Takashi, but with an indescribable arrogance, walked towards him. Takashi's strength was not strong, even a little weak, so he usually behaved kindly. Good morning, Niji. But this sentence did not receive any response, and he didn't even look at Takashi. However, he was used to these things. Since he entered class 3, Hyuga Niji had never had a good face for him. He believed that a weak person like Takashi who had no talent should not come in, and was completely dragging the whole class down. Tenten followed behind, showing an apologetic look and whispered, Takashi, don't mind it, Niji is just like that. He took a deep breath and tried to suppress his anger, then showed his usual kind smile. After all, he was already in his 30s or 40s, including his age in his previous life. There was no need to get angry with the child, even though this child was very annoying. In Niji's eyes, the only person who could be called an opponent was Sasuke. If he had to choose another one, it would be Shikamaru. Others were not in his eyes at all. Might Guy was also quite helpless when he saw this scene. He hoped that his disciples could unite as one and be full of passion for training, but since Hyuga Niji had a very special background, he couldn't say much, not to mention that this guy was indeed a genius. Now they have basically learned the theoretical courses, and more training is needed in physical fitness and practical combat. They are more proficient in the use of substitution techniques and shuriken, because these two skills do not require any superb talent, but practice makes perfect. The more times they are used, the more exquisite they are. Today's training goal is to throw and practice shuriken. I knew that Hyuga Niji was a genius in the anime before, but only when I was in close contact did I know what kind of person he was, and how difficult it was to practice chakra. Hyuga Niji threw 3 shurikens in a row, and all of them hit the bullseye in the middle, with almost no pause time, all in one go, very smooth. Might Guy looked satisfied and nodded. He is worthy of being a genius boy of the Hyuga family. Even this most basic move has been practiced to perfection. As for Takashi, although he usually practices hard, he is still not as good as Hyuga Niji who has the talent of white eyes. However, he is also quite satisfactory. He hit the second ring on the edge of the center. Might Guy's face has no emotional fluctuations. Soon it was noon. When eating lunch, he always liked to hide alone. This was his habit for many years. It was the same in his previous life. In this life, Takashi's parents were also ninjas. They died accidentally when they were on a mission and left some subsidies, which allowed him to live. Looking up at the sky, he sighed. Can he really survive in the ninja world like this? At this moment, a cute frog suddenly jumped on his head. As a mechanical voice sounded, he was stunned. Welcome to use the traveling frog. the host can send the little frog to travel to the heavens and the worlds and harvest rewards. As the food level and item level of the little frog increase, the time it stays in the heavens and the worlds can be increased, and the preciousness of the things brought back will also increase. However, the little frog may be injured. Please pay attention to this. I wish you a pleasant use. Then, an interface similar to an electronic panel appeared in front of Gaio Zen. There were only a few simple options: courtyards and houses. There were also many clovers in the courtyard. A sense of ecstasy surged in his heart. This interface was too familiar. Isn't this a game called Traveling Frog that I have played before? How could it become like this? Could it be that this little frog is also going to be sent out? According to my familiarity with this game, I first harvested the clovers in the courtyard, habitually opened them all, and bought a few bento boxes, which contained a lot of bento boxes and props, all of which were used to upgrade the little frog. He just looked at himself and saw that he only had 100 clovers, so he couldn't buy any high-end bento, let alone props. Then an aiming interface popped up. Gaio thought for a while and clicked to enter Awesome Little Frog. He looked at the little frog named Awesome, took the bento to him, and said to himself, "Brother Frog, whether you can turn over depends on you. If I eat and drink well in the future, I will buy you the most advanced bento every day." Then he released the little frog to travel, and a message flooded into his mind. "Your frog is rushing to the world of One Piece. Please wait patiently for a return visit." After seeing this message, Gaio Zen was even more excited. You know, this is a big world with countless treasures. What kind of treasure can he bring back? Is it domineering? Or the Navy 6 style? Or a powerful devil fruit? His heart was constantly churning, but in just a moment, he quickly removed these thoughts. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. In fact, there is another reason why Takashi is so eager to bring back powerful things. That is, the time for the Chunin exam is not far away. If he cannot show the corresponding training results, or cannot successfully advance to Chunin, he will most likely become cannon fodder and go to other places to carry out missions. He does not want to become cannon fodder so early. Chapter 2, Shining Fruit. The trip this time took 3 days, and he could only wait patiently during this time. 3 days was not a long time, and it passed in the blink of an eye. In the morning, the sun shone in, and Takashi subconsciously reached for the alarm clock on the table, but he touched a soft object. He sat up suddenly, and his hazy eyes carefully saw that it was indeed his frog that came back. "Your awesome little frog has returned. The first trip will increase the extra luck value, and the reward attribute has been improved. Do you want to receive the reward? Receive." Click on the frog, and you will see that in addition to the bento, lucky charm, and props, there is another option, which is the reward option. Click to extract the reward, and after a flash of light, the whole body will turn yellow, and there are strange spiral patterns on it. Takashi was a little excited. Could this be the legendary devil fruit? Check the devil fruit attributes again. The sparkle fruit, a specialty of the One Piece world, a natural ability fruit. After using it, you will have a light constitution, immune to physical attacks and most energy attacks, and can turn any part of the body into light and penetrate into particles. It is a very powerful devil fruit ability. Note, due to the change of the world line, the side effects of the devil fruit are cancelled, and it will not be restricted by seawater. At the same time, the fruit ability will be coordinated by the chakra content and physical strength. Takashi Shin was stunned. Although he had thought before that he would bring back some good things after increasing his luck value, he did not expect that he would bring back a natural devil fruit for the first time, and it was the sparkle fruit of Kizaru, one of the 3 famous admirals. Especially the ability to eliminate the side effects of the fruit is the best. Although it will be restricted by the body and chakra, it is a natural ability fruit after all, and it should be very powerful. He got up quickly and cleaned the table very cleanly. Eating such an awesome thing must have a sense of ritual. He put the knife and fork on it, cut it little by little, and put it in his mouth. A sweet and delicious smell came, which tasted a bit like a mixture of banana, pineapple, and mango. He remembered that the devil fruit should be very unpalatable. Perhaps because the side effects were eliminated, the unpalatable taste of the devil fruit was changed to a very sweet fruity smell. In a short while, a large fruit was eaten up, and a special power surged into the body and quickly flowed through the body. The body was undergoing the transformation of the devil fruit. First of all, elementalization. Gao Kyosen's mind moved, and his body from head to toe was transformed into light energy particles bit by bit. Then, these shining little stars quickly flowed in his room, and his shadow flashed back and forth in the bedroom, study, and living room. It only took a blink of an eye to move to the next place. Although the speed was very fast, it could control this power very well, and would not cause loss of control, as if this was his own power. Although his speed is very fast now, it should not reach the realm of light speed. Not to mention him, even Kizaru should not have the realm of light speed. However, this matter, after all, needs to adapt to the body's condition. To really reach the speed of light, at least a stronger physical attack than Kado can be achieved. But even if he didn't reach the speed of light, his speed was extremely fast now. He was probably as fast as Minato Namikaze's flying thunder god, or even faster. In addition to the elemental combination and rapid movement, the attack ability of the flash fruit was also very strong, and it could emit strong flashes to blind the enemy. It could also condense light energy and release strong lasers to cause large-scale explosions, which was even more powerful. It could accelerate the body, and with the help of super high speed, even the most ordinary attacks could burst out with strong power. The most terrifying thing was that he could also use the refraction of the mirror to move back and forth, which could catch the opponent off guard. He looked at his hands, and a strong sense of confidence surged in his heart. He opened the system again to see what his little frog was doing. At this time, the frog was reading a book on his little bed. He opened his backpack and quickly prepared the luggage for the next trip. After harvesting the clover, he had to reward the hard-working frog. He didn't buy the cheapest cream waffles, but spent 80 clover to buy a ketchup rice omelette. This is also one of the reasons why Hyuga Niji doesn't like her. Not only is she not strong enough, but she also has bad intentions towards their eldest lady, and she has come to her again and again. If Hinata hadn't stepped forward to rescue her every time, Takashi's situation would be much more miserable than it is now. After coming in yesterday, she saw a very strange fruit peel on the table and frowned. Takashi, why do you only eat fruit in the morning? You are growing up now, and boys should eat more meat. Do you want me to bring you breakfast every morning? When she finished speaking, her little face was flushed. Takashi didn't know what to explain. Okay, that's great, so I don't have to eat bread and instant noodles every morning. By the way, why is your face so red? No, nothing. Takashi approached and touched her forehead. A faint fragrance rushed into his nose. Although she was still young, she was like a bud about to bloom. Seeing her shy appearance, his heart was also brightened. The two packed up and set off. When they arrived at the ninja school, Hyuga Niji came early for the first time today. When he saw Hinata and Takashi coming side by side, a hint of anger flashed in his eyes, and then he continued to practice his bagwazang. My guy, who was standing by, saw this and a barely perceptible smile flashed across his face. Chapter 3 Have you ever experienced the flash kick? Hyuga Niji's bagwa upper palm is really powerful, and the moves he performs are very neat and smooth, without any drag. More importantly, this set of palm techniques also has built-in defense, and there are very few blind spots. When they arrived at school, Hinata and Takashi went their separate ways. After all, they were not in the same class. Might Guy saw Takashi coming over and said jokingly, "Youth is really burning." Zyoli on the side was a little confused. He hadn't started training yet, so how could he tell? Shianshin's eyes were also a little strange, but there was a hint of ambiguity in them. Takashi did not become complacent after obtaining the power of the fruit. He still greeted a few people as usual, but the feedback he got was the same. Seeing that everyone was already there, Guy attracted everyone's attention. It's time for us to burn our youth again. Before the Chunin exam, we have to go on a mission. We need a group of bandits who are making trouble here. But it is said that they may be ninjas sent by other villages to gather intelligence. Don't be careless. Countless ninjas have failed because of carelessness. Youth will not come again. Hearing that there is another mission, Rock Lee's whole body is burning. Shianshin is quite helpless to see him like this. On the other hand, Takahashi and Niji did not show any reaction. K valued people and had no objection. You all should prepare in 4 days. But at this moment, Niji raised his hand. Sorry, Teacher K, I have an opinion. Then he glanced at Takahashi standing aside with his peripheral vision and said coldly, Teacher K, I don't agree with Takahashi's participation in this mission. His strength is not enough to match us. If he handles some small things normally, it's okay. But if he encounters elite ninjas from other villages this time, his mistakes may cause us all to die. The smell of gunpowder in these words was already very strong, just short of calling Takahashi a waste by name. Even Tenten felt that it was a bit too much. Even if they didn't get along, at least they were in the same class. Was it necessary to make it so awkward? But the arrogant Niji didn't care about these. Takahashi had been included in his most hated list and ranked top 1. Takahashi asked back, so you mean you think Teacher Gay is incompetent? Niji didn't expect that this guy would dare to put a big hat on him. Don't talk nonsense. I mean that you are too weak to form a team with us to complete the mission. You will only hold us back. If you have any self-awareness, you should quit our team 3. I will never allow people like you to eat and wait for death here and lower our honor. This has been upgraded to naked humiliation. Rock Lee usually has a good relationship with Takahashi. Because they are both not talented players, he really can't stand it. Niji, what you said is really too much. We have seen Takahashi's efforts. Why do you say that to him? Niji asked back with a sneer. What's the use of hard work? How many hard-working ninjas die every year? You. Rock Lee wanted to continue to fight for justice, but was stopped by Takahashi. It's okay, Lee. Since Niji doesn't agree with my strength, I have nothing to say. Ninjas still have to fight to see the truth. If I beat you, will you have nothing to say? Hearing this, the others panicked. Although Takahashi tried hard, he was not as strong as Niji. It can be said that Takahashi had no hope of winning when the two of them faced each other. Tenten covered her mouth in surprise. Are you crazy? Your behavior is tantamount to suicide. Although Rock Lee had a good relationship with Takahashi, he had to admit Niji's strength and whispered to Takahashi, you are not Niji's opponent, so don't compete. Even Kei said with a frown. Takahashi, don't be impulsive. He knew the difference in strength between the two sides. From a teacher's point of view, Takahashi had no problem, but from a ninja's point of view, Niji's concerns were reasonable. The most important thing is that he is not afraid that Takahashi will lose to Niji, but he is afraid that Niji will suddenly attack him in the game. What if he makes him disabled? That will ruin Takahashi's life as a ninja. As a teacher, he can never watch such a thing happen. However, Takahashi has made up his mind to fight. If he doesn't establish his authority now, when will he establish his authority? He doesn't want to be trampled under the feet of others for his whole life. You don't need to persuade me. I have made up my mind. If I beat Niji, you should have nothing to say, right? Niji shook his head. You won't have even a 10% chance. If you win more than one victory from me, I will let you lie on the bed until everyone's exams are over and you are completely kicked out of our 3 teams. You will know that the gap between people is huge. Takahashi laughed when he heard this. His smile was so brilliant. He even said that there was nothing wrong with what Hyuga Niji said, but his position was changed. The situation at this moment could not be resolved. Everyone knew that this two-man fight had to be fought, so they had no choice but to give up. Might Guy frowned and looked at the two of them. You can have a fight, but don't use too much force. Niji pretended not to hear what he said, and Might Guy had already prepared to rescue Takahashi at the slightest movement. The two were less than 10 meters apart, and Niji used his white eyes. Do you have anything else to say? Takahashi suddenly said something inexplicable. Have you ever experienced a flash kick? What? Everyone was also confused by this sentence. But in the next moment, Takahashi's figure disappeared on the spot, and his left foot flashed with dazzling light. He kicked Niji's chest hard. He only felt a terrifying energy bursting in his chest, and the whole person was like being hit by a train, and his body suddenly flew backwards. Might Guy was so scared that he quickly flew out and caught it with a bang. The powerful force hit him, and he retreated 7 steps. A long mark was left on the ground, and Niji was severely injured by this move. At least several ribs were broken. The blood kept flowing from the corner of Niji's mouth, but at this moment he didn't care about his injuries at all. His eyes were bulging with blue veins, and stared at Takashi. His eyes were full of horror. What kind of monster is this? It's not that he hasn't seen geniuses before, but he has never seen someone with such terrifying speed and strength. The speed was so fast that Niji's eyes couldn't react at all. He didn't even have the opportunity to set up his bagua palm and was directly knocked out in an instant. What made him even more disappointed was that he clearly realized how huge the gap between him and Takashi was. But at this time, the one who was most shocked was Might Guy. Chapter 4. It's so late, I'm worried. Might Guy was also startled and quickly picked up Hyuga Niji, only to see that his breath was a little weak, but it was not a big deal. He looked at Takashi with some blame in his eyes, as if to say, how could you be so heavy-handed? But in the end, he couldn't say these words, mainly because the shock overwhelmed other emotions, making him a little unsure of how to say it. Suddenly, Might Guy's eyes were a little blurred, and he looked at Takashi's figure a little blurry, as if the figure standing there was not Takashi, but the former ninja legend Golden Flash Namake's Minato, and the two figures gradually overlapped. He shook his head and threw away these thoughts. The ninja legend had been dead for many years. How could he come back to life? He didn't believe in reincarnation. Xiaoli and Chien on the side were still immersed in shock, unable to extricate themselves, especially Xiaoli. In addition to shock, his eyes also carried a touch of complexity. Unexpectedly, he had left himself so far without knowing it. It seems that Sasuke and Niji are not the goals he is working hard for. This long-hidden Takashi is a real genius. Might Guy looked at the two of them, sighed and said, Lee, Chien, you guys take Niji to the infirmary first, treat him as soon as possible, and it's best not to delay the next mission. As for Takashi, you go back and rest first. I'll let you know if there's anything. Niji's eyes were filled with reluctance and anger. If his eyes could kill, he would have killed Takashi 100 times, and was supported by the two to leave the school. Takashi saw that there was nothing for him to do here, so he might as well go home and rest, waiting for the frog to return. He suddenly thought of something in his mind. If he left home, would the little frog still be able to find him when he came back? Thinking about this, he returned home unknowingly. On the other side, Might Guy had already arrived at the Hokage's office. The third Hokage was smoking his big pipe. After a long while, he groaned. You mean that Takashi really has the strength to surpass the Hyuga clan, and also has a speed comparable to Minato, right? Yes. The third Hokage sighed. K. It seems that you are really confused by the training. How can you have such a stupid illusion? Let's not talk about Hyuga Niji. He is a genius boy who has not appeared in the Hyuga family for many years. It is not impossible to surpass him. But you say that this boy can have a speed comparable to Minato, which is too outrageous. Flying Thunder God is an ninjutsu created by the second generation of Wood. This boy has absolutely no chance to learn it. Can he surpass the speed of Thunder God with physical strength alone? If that's the case, who would practice the art of ninjutsu? Wouldn't it be better to practice physical skills? Do you have anything else to do? If there is nothing else, I have something important to do, so I won't keep you. Might Guy was driven out like this. He was a little depressed. Why didn't anyone believe what he said? In fact, this was mainly because he had begged the third generation Hokage to join the Anbu before. He was rejected countless times, but he still begged to join. The reason was that Kakashi joined the Anbu. After a long time, the third generation Hokage felt that this guy's words were a bit unreliable, so he didn't believe many of the things he said afterwards. Especially today, this kind of thing is even more outrageous. While reviewing the documents, the third Hokage thought of what Gay said before and snorted coldly. Has Gay been single for too long and has hallucinations? It seems that we have to introduce some other female ninjas to him. Otherwise, I don't know when he will lose control. If Might Guy knew that the third Hokage would think this way, he would probably be so depressed that he would vomit blood. He came to the hospital, and Xiaoli and Chien were waiting outside. How is it? Is Nisi seriously injured? Chien rushed to answer. Although the injury is not serious, it is not light. The bones in the chest are broken. Takashi is really so heavy. When talking about this matter, Zyoli has a different opinion. It was Nisi who provoked first, otherwise why didn't he take action? Seeing that the two were about to quarrel, Gay also had a headache. If this goes on, how can he carry out the mission? You two stop arguing. Can Nisi recover before the mission? It should be possible, but he will be a little weak. Overall, it won't affect the mission. That's good. A green light emanated from the medical room. It was the medical ninja who was constantly treating Nisi's injuries. The three of them looked at the constantly flashing light and suddenly remembered Takashi's terrifying blow. Especially Zyoli and Shanshan. They imagined that, if Nisi was replaced by themselves, would they have the same fate? The answer they got also made them sweat coldly. Their fate might be much more tragic than Nisi's. Because Nisi had learned soft fist and knew how to unload force. If they were allowed to go, he would probably be unconscious now. Although the fact that Nisi was injured did not cause much trouble, it did not escape Hinata's eyes. After all, he was a member of their family and would get any news first. At this time, Takashi Zensen was in the house, drinking a pack of ramen noodles. He heard someone knocking on the door. After opening the door, he found Miss Chushin standing there angrily. She didn't say anything and walked straight into Takashi's room. Takashi closed the door and looked at Hinata with a guilty conscience. What's wrong? Hinata still looked at him without saying a word. Takashi really couldn't stand it. Well, I shouldn't have been so heavy-handed today and sent Niji to the hospital. Only then did Hinata say faintly. What else? This question made him stunned. What else? What else? Don't fight with others like this in the future. What if you get hurt? Takashi Zen's heart warmed when he heard this. In the whole village, Miss Hinata was probably the only one who could care about him so much. Okay, I promise that I will never fight with others like this again, and I will never make you worry again. Hinata's pretty face blushed when she was said. Hate it, who cares about you? I won't care about you anymore. After saying that, he started to walk away. It was already late in the moonlight, and he wanted to let her stay for a while, but Hinata walked away so fast that he didn't even have a chance to speak. It's so late, and I really don't want you to leave alone. Chapter 5, John and Team. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. During these days, they did not go to school for training, but were recuperating on their own. They were in the best mental state to go out for this mission. Although the mission level assigned this time was sea level, they still had to be fully prepared. The so-called sinking ditch capsize means that the ranking has been roughly restored, but the face is still a little pale and coughs from time to time. Apart from that, there is no big problem, and the use of ninjutsu should not be affected. Takashi also went to the hospital to see him once. Obviously, from Niji's eyes, he could see the word cautious. Although he still ignored him, he was not as repulsive as before, and reluctantly accepted it. This day, it was finally time for them to go out for the mission. This was their first mission. Might Guy and Takashi walked at the back of the team. He hesitated for a long time, but still asked in a low voice. Takashi, although I know that my question is not very polite, but can you solve my curiosity? Your incredibly fast ninjutsu reminds me of the fourth Hokage. Could it be that you are also learning Flying Thunder God? Takashi really laughed. How is it possible? Teacher Gay, how can I learn the ninjutsu that the fourth Hokage learned? I'm just a little bit faster, no special skills. Might Guy thought to himself, how can you say that? It's not just a little bit, it's clearly a billion bits. Seeing that he couldn't get any useful information, he simply stopped asking. After all, he was also a teacher. It was too embarrassing to chase after students and ask questions, but he believed that Takashi would tell them this secret sooner or later. In his eyes, such a hard-working person would definitely not be a bad person. Shanshan asked Niji about his health in front of him, and he just replied indifferently, I'm fine. Along the way, his eyes would fall into contemplation from time to time, as if he was thinking about something. This was the truth, because this incident was a real blow to Niji. He thought that in the Konoha ninja school, except for Sasuke, no one should be able to compete with him. Apart from Sasuke, Perhaps only Shikamaru could barely catch Ninja's eye, but now a guy suddenly appeared, a guy he once looked down upon, and left him so far away that he couldn't even see the taillights of his car. This blow was really indescribable for him. However, in the execution of the mission, this kind of distraction is often fatal. He can only force himself to cheer up. As an elite of the Hyuga family, he will not be defeated. He must continue to become stronger and surpass Takashi. After making up his mind, he regained his fighting spirit and a gleam of light appeared in his eyes, but he didn't know that there is such a thing as the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. After they left the village, they headed towards the route provided by the Anbu and walked for about a day. Might Guy looked at the map and frowned. The direction of this map leads to Kaguya. Could it be that they sent ninjas to spy on us? But there hasn't been any particularly important news in the wood industry recently, so why would they send people here so blatantly? Aren't they afraid of causing disputes between the two villages? Kaguya had been beaten badly before, and even now it was in the stage of recuperation. This kind of suicidal behavior was not in line with common sense. A half moon had appeared in the sky, and the black veil in the sky had gradually spread over. Everyone sat around the campfire, casting a layer of romantic color in the forest. However, the more at this time, the more careful you have to be. This is the best time for ninja assassinations, and most battles take place at night. Shin, as a cook, took out a lot of cooking utensils from the scroll. Looking at Takashi, she was very impressed. Don't say it, at least the quality of life can be guaranteed to be very high. The rich woman of Konoha is not a joke. After everyone finished their meal and sat around, Kei spoke. Rest early. We will set off early tomorrow morning. It will take less than half a day to reach the target location. If everything goes well, we can return to Muai the day after tomorrow. Everyone lay down to rest. Takashi was also ready to have a good sleep, but at this moment, he suddenly felt a very obscure light. Since he ate the shining fruit, he has been very sensitive to all light sources. It was clearly the light reflected by the moonlight shining on the metal. He turned his head and looked at my guy and found that he was still resting and did not notice anything unusual. Takashi immediately whispered, "Everyone wake up first. There is something going on, but don't move first. Don't alert the enemy. The other party doesn't know that we have noticed it yet." They were far away and couldn't hear the whispers. Kei also woke up and felt several auras lurking around. He cursed himself for being careless. It was really embarrassing to let a genin remind him. Before he could speak, Takashi continued. "Teacher Kei, something seems to be wrong." "What's wrong?" He knew that Takashi must have discovered something. "We are clearly on a C-rank mission this time. Logically, we are facing some genin, not more than chunin at most. However, there is a person on the other side who you can't even find. How can a chunin have such strength and experience? There is something fishy about this matter." After saying this, the other people also realized that it was indeed the case. Could it be that the information of their own Anbu was confused and they received false information? You know, when performing a mission, the most feared thing is information asymmetry. If the preparation for the mission does not match the information above, it will be fatal. Just as they thought about it, a mist suddenly rose around them, and Kei said hurriedly, "Wake up, this is the mist hidden technique." I didn't expect them to be so careful. Seeing that we were all asleep, they still wanted to use this confusing ninjutsu. It seems that the other party is determined to annihilate us here. At this time, a faint light suddenly appeared in the distance, and the size was relatively large. Takashi was shocked. Not good. Leave here quickly. After what they had just done, they still trusted Takashi's perception very much, and left here quickly. Then a violent water dragon rushed to the place where they had just rested, blasting a big pit. Might Guy was knowledgeable and recognized it at a glance. It turned out to be the water-style water dragon bullet technique. The opponent is at least a jonin. This aura, at least 8 people, 4 jonin, 4 chunins. The lineup is really luxurious. Takashi pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "No, it's 5 jonin and 4 chunins." One guy hid very well, but he was exposed after all. Chapter 6 Preparing to break out. After hearing this, several people all looked over. Even Kei was a little surprised. He was a master of cultivation, and his perception of aura was much stronger than that of ordinary ninjas. Even if he didn't use chakra, he could detect it through the sound of breathing. Takashi could actually detect it more accurately than himself, which surprised him a little, but he still had a skeptical attitude. Not only that, Zyoli Shianshin and the others were even more suspicious. Takashi, don't make trouble. Now is a critical moment. It's not about who will be in the limelight. Shianshin frowned and said. Regarding these doubts, he just said lightly. 4 people in the southwest, 4 people in the northeast, and 1 person in the southeast, a total of 9 people. The direction just now was from the southwest. If I guess correctly, they should use 2 Jonins and 2 Chunins to split the team into 2 teams, and then have 1 person assist in the attack from the side. Although the words were very clear, it was just a guess after all. Even K didn't feel the existence of the 9th aura. They looked at Niji at this time, because his Byakugan could detect the movement of the opponent's chakra, but at this time he shook his head helplessly. The mist hidden technique they used this time is not like the previous one. I don't know what means they used, but it actually contains thick chakra. I can only see a very vague scene, and their figures overlap, so I can't judge clearly. At this time, the opponent's attack was once again overwhelming, and 4 water dragon bullet techniques were launched at the same time, and the dangerous aura was approaching. Seeing this scene, there was no way to avoid it. At the critical moment, K directly opened the 6th gate of his 8 gates of ninjutsu, the Jingmen. You hide behind me. K stood in front alone, and his aura began to change violently. A powerful force burst from the inside out of his body, and even blue veins were visible to the naked eye. He jumped high, and swung nearly 100 punches in the direction of the 4 water dragons in an instant. His fists were dizzy, and the air had violent friction, and he shot out one fireball after another. This was the unique skill of the 6th gate, towards the peacock. Under the huge power of Cheokang, the water dragon turned into a pool of stagnant water, but this was just the beginning. Because the opponent had the advantage of the mist hidden technique, they were in the open, while the opponent was in the dark, which made them a perfect target. At one time, countless shurikens came over. Although this kind of thing was not very lethal, it could not withstand the accumulation of a small amount. At one time, hundreds of shurikens rushed towards them. Teacher K once again used his specialty, Konoha Whirlwind, and a strong airflow knocked all the flying shurikens away. Shianshin, Zyali and the others all cheered for K in the back, but only he, the person involved, understood that dragging it on like this was not a solution. His 8 gates of Dunjia could not hold out for long. If he could not solve the problem by the end of time, then he would be in big trouble. Now there was thick fog all around, and the visible depth was less than 1 meter. This could not be the mist hidden technique used by one person. It was clearly the superposition of multiple people to achieve such a strong effect. In such a thick fog, his own flash fruit will be restricted to a certain extent, the speed of shuttle will be slowed down, and the direction will be uncertain. If he cannot kill the top ninja with one strike when approaching the 4-man team, his chakra may not be able to guarantee that he can shuttle out. After all, turning the body into light energy particles and attacking both consume chakra. If he doesn't grasp the opportunity, it will really be game over. Thinking of this, he hesitated for a moment, but decided to speak. I have a way. Hurry up, K said while knocking away the shuriken that was coming. We will blow away some of the fog first, so that I can determine their exact location, and then fight our way out. You protect me before that. After getting close, I will kill them with one strike. After killing the Jonin who released the mist hidden technique, it will be our world. Everyone was shocked when they heard his suggestion. They all thought that Takashi was crazy. A scary person actually wanted to attack a team composed of 2 Jonin and 2 Chunin. Did he really think he was the 4th generation Hokage in the world? Everyone thought this was nonsense, but at this moment, Zyoli said unexpectedly, I believe in Takashi. He can actually say that, right, Takashi? Listening to Zyoli's trust, I was somewhat moved. I will definitely do it. Give me a chance, and I will give you a miracle. When he spoke, a sense of confidence arose spontaneously. The confidence did not come out of thin air, but was due to strength. In the randomly assigned team, K rushed to the front, Xiaoli and Shan were distributed on the left and right, and Niji was in the back. And Niji's position was actually proposed by Takashi for the first time, which surprised Niji. Not only was he surprised, but everyone else was also very surprised, because the grudge between the two was not small. Among ninjas, stabbing in the back is a common operation. If you mess with me during the day, I will let you die at night, and I don't know how you die. But it is very rare to be able to trust your teammates like Takashi. K heard Takashi say this. In addition to being surprised, I was more relieved that I didn't misjudge this boy after all. Niji's eyes were a little complicated, but he didn't say anything after all. In fact, Takashi did this for his own reasons. First, he believed in Hyuga Niji's character, because he was not a mean person. Otherwise, even if you lent Takashi 10,000 courages, he would not dare to do this. Second, Niji was more meticulous, at least more meticulous than Rock Lee and Tenten, and he had the Byakugan. Although the opponent released the enhanced version of the mist hidden technique, the thick chakra in the air affected the use of the Byakugan, but it was still the Byakugan after all, which was superior to Tenten and Rock Lee. Takashi was still a little afraid of the ninth person hiding in the dark. After preparing everything, several people set up their formations. Might Guy, who had burst out 6 gates, did not choose to burst out the 7th gate, because if it was a protracted war, the consumption would be too great. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Are you ready to spend your youth with me, Rock Lee? Ready, Teacher Gay. The figures of the two suddenly overlapped, forming two blue beast-like figures in the mist, and their voices overlapped. Double Konoha whirlwind. 2 strong gusts of wind opened a gap in the thick fog. Charge. This was a voice that rang in everyone's mind. 5 extremely fast figures began to break through the front, and the other side thought that these people were completely desperate. In this situation, they did not judge their escape route well, and dared to break through head on. They really thought that these elite ninjas came for nothing. But they never knew that Takashi killed the elites. Chapter 7, Instant Kill of Jonin, Golden Flash. The 4-man team was extremely balanced, and everyone did their part to resist the attacks from other directions, but this approach became a desperate struggle in the eyes of those Jonin. A Jonin named Naruto, who wore the Kirigakure head emblem, sneered, "Is this Konoha's elite ninja? I think it's nothing special. It seems that we can solve the task immediately and go back to collect the reward money." The others also had the same mentality. They didn't expect this mission to be so easy. Facing Might Guy's strong outburst just now, although they were a little frightened, they soon calmed down. They all knew that this kind of explosive power would often fall quickly, and by that time the body would be weaker, and they would become lambs to be slaughtered. They are best at playing with their opponents like this. At this time, the captain of their team said, "You can joke, but don't underestimate them later. After all, they are famous physical masters in Konoha. His father used to be a genin, and killed 4 elite jonin alone. Especially you, Naruto, know that?" Although Naruto hummed a few times, it was obviously a bit perfunctory, and continued to focus on Might Guy and the others. In a blink of an eye, the 5-man team had already approached the location of the Kirigakure team. But at this moment, the team leader suddenly exclaimed, "No, why are they missing one person? How come the guy who was surrounded by them before is gone? Everyone be alert." As soon as the voice fell, there was no response from others, and the sound of Naruto's panting remained in the air. Captain, be careful." Then he swallowed his last breath. A chill suddenly rose behind him, and he was so scared that he didn't even dare to turn his head, and immediately dodged. Takashi's knife also missed. I didn't expect this guy to react so quickly. Generally speaking, in this case, he would look back to see what happened. After all, he was a jonin, so his reaction speed was much faster. Takashi didn't want to fight, and he flashed back to the team again. This time he consumed at least half of his chakra, but in return, the surrounding fog also dissipated a lot. When several people saw him coming back panting, they didn't see what happened just now. Only Niji could barely keep up, but he only saw a flash of light that disappeared and flashed back into the team in a moment. Although he couldn't see what happened clearly, the gradually dissipating fog made him understand what earth-shaking things Takashi had done during his disappearance. For some reason, Niji suddenly felt a little lucky that he could kill the Jonin in a flash, and even left no trace. If he wasn't a member of Konoha, he might have lost his life in the previous competition. Takashi returned to the team and said lightly, "There are 4 people in the southwest. Kill 3 of them. There is still one Jonin who escapes to the southeast." Niji stares at that guy with his Byakugan, and we can follow the clues and find the mouse hiding in the dark. Niji was stunned. Okay. He was ordered, but didn't hesitate at all. For some reason, he had a feeling that he should listen to Takashi at this time. Might Guy led the team, not to the northeast to deal with the 4 people, but to the southeast. The knife in the dark is the most deadly. At this time, the ninja hiding in a big tree in the southeast corner saw his companion running towards him, and cursed inwardly. The other party is really a fool, running towards him at this time. Doesn't it mean that his position has been exposed? This pig brain, still a captain. I must report it to my superiors when I go back. At the same time, the 4 people in the northeast saw their direction and went straight to their trump cards. How could this be? The team leader of the 4 people in the northeast has no name, but a code name, named Inu. At this time, another senior ninja under his command asked, "Inu, how about we go down and divide the battlefield?" The kid in the middle of this team seems a little weird. Everyone surrounds him in the middle. We go down to separate the Konoha senior ninja in front, get rid of the weird kid, and then outflank the senior ninja in green clothes. What do you think? Inu thought about it and felt that it was safer to do so. Okay, you take the 2 to break up their team first. I'll go and tie up the guy in green clothes. The strength of the Jonin who spoke was also quite good. He was proficient in water escape and ranked 3rd in the entire 9-man team. He led the 3 people to rush directly from the side. Since he was blocking the route of several scary people, this guy didn't care much. At this time, Niji said from behind, "Be careful, there are 3 people coming from the northeast. 1 Jonin, 2 Genin. No, there is another one. It's bad. They want to separate us." At this time, a guy suddenly heard a shout. Water escape. Water chaos wave. A strong stream of water gushed towards them, but a scream was heard at random. It turned out that the Jonin was releasing a ninjutsu at the right time. The vision in front was not good, and Takashi took advantage of it and stabbed a kunai directly into his heart. This scream scared the 2 Chunins around him so much that their hearts almost jumped out. They didn't see anything clearly at all. They only saw a flash of golden light, and the Jonin who led the team had become a corpse. Might Guy saw this and shouted loudly, "Good opportunity, burn, youth." The blue beast running in Konoha whirlwind. He kicked the 2 guys until they vomited blood. Great job, Takashi. Although I don't know how you did it, but such strength is really admirable. Now, not to mention Tenten and Niji, even Might Guy was impressed by this strength. Not to mention anything else, just the speed of dealing with the Jonin. Not to mention that even Kakashi of the same period could not do it. I'm afraid that Minato Namikaze back then could not deal with 2 Jonin and 2 Chunin so quickly at Takashi's current age. What's going on now? Because the blocking team was killed in an instant, the guy who was entangled with my guy was stunned in place, neither advancing nor retreating. Inu didn't understand what was going on at all. What happened just now? He only saw a flash of golden light and his companion screamed. Facing the entire team of Team 3, he swallowed his saliva. He didn't want to face a madman who opened the 6th gate of the 8 gates of ninjutsu, and a kid whose speed was unknown. There was only one word left in his mind, that is run. The faster the better. Might Guy's aura burst out even more fiercely. It's too late to run, burn, youth, Li Lionhe. His speed was simply not comparable to Might Guy's. He was caught up in a flash, grabbed directly, and attacked wildly in midair for more than 10 seconds, before falling to the ground. Several people came forward to check, and this guy was basically only half a breath away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Bringing Back the Super Soldier Serum. The operation was done in one go. It may sound long, but it actually took only a blink of an eye. Only 2 upper blades were left in the entire Jonin team. The one who dodged alone at the beginning was the captain of the entire team. At this moment, he felt like he had seen a ghost, because he found that the breath of his companions had disappeared, and only one breath was left, which kept rushing towards him. Damn it, what happened? How come the breath of those guys disappeared? It only took a few breaths. I don't believe that the guys in Konoha are so powerful. They must have used some other means. Despicable villains. He didn't even think about who was the first to be despicable. This guy was a senior Jonin. Otherwise, he would not be the captain of the entire team. He was very confident in the people in his team. They were all veterans who had been on the battlefield for a long time. He knew the strength of these people best. He snorted coldly. Unless the Konoha people had Minato Namikaze alive, it would be impossible for them to kill all his team members at such a fast speed. At this time, the guy who fled here first had already found the location of their captain. His clothes were soaked with cold sweat. He was now terrified and breathless. "Captain, it's bad." The captain frowned. "Why are you in such a hurry? Speak slowly. You have been a Jonin for so many years. You have seen everything in the world. How can you be so scared?" He hurriedly explained. "No, it was the guys from Konoha. They were too weird. The kid they surrounded was incredibly fast. We only saw a flash of golden light in the thick fog, and 3 of our 4-man team died. If I hadn't run away decisively without looking back, I'm afraid we would only be corpses now." The captain was shocked. What he feared came true. Could it be that Konoha had another super genius with talent comparable to Minato Namikaze, and he also learned the Flying Thunder God technique? If that was true, they were really in trouble. No, he absolutely cannot let this happen. But now that things have come to this, it is unlikely to turn the tables. Seeing the aggressive Might Guy rushing towards them, he must bring this news back. He cannot let Konoha grow up to be such a terrifying person. Such a monster can even change the situation of the war by himself after growing up. Because he had the honor of meeting Minato Namikaze once. If he had not surrendered quickly, he would have died more than 10 years ago. Now he still recalls the past from time to time and is often awakened by nightmares. It can be seen how big a nightmare Minato Namikaze caused them. Now there is a second Minato Namikaze, which they absolutely cannot tolerate. The captain made a prompt decision and decided to cover the rear himself because his strength is the strongest in the team and he can block it for a longer time. Seeing the captain make such a decision, he couldn't help but feel a little sad. When the 9 people left, he was the only one left. But there is nothing he can do about it. Ninja is a high-risk profession, even so high risk that the whole family may be loyal. The captain is determined to die and must get this information back to the village. But how could Might Guy not think of what he could think of? He absolutely could not let this news leak out. Takashi's physical strength had already run out at this time, and he was not particularly useful. He could only cooperate with Niji to report the situation ahead. When the captain saw the arrival of the group, he directly used the water shield waterfall technique to try to stop everyone. At this time, Might Guy saw that there was only one person in front of him, and he immediately understood what was going on. While running, he directly opened the 7th door, put his hands together, and used his more powerful skill, the Day Tiger. The ferocious white tiger, with a powerful air wave, directly split the waterfall in half and hit the captain's abdomen, hitting his 2 eyeballs almost popping out and spitting out blood. But at this time, the remaining guy had disappeared, and Might Guy frowned and looked at the captain. Where did the remaining person go? The captain had blood in his mouth, but at this time there was a hideous smile on his face. You will never know. Although we have sacrificed many Jonin this time, it is definitely worth it to know this news. I will wait for you in hell. Then he directly cut his trachea with a kunai. Seeing that he was so cruel to him, he shook his head helplessly, but he was a little confused in his heart. Why did the Hidden Mist village have to make things difficult for Konoha? The 2 villages have not had any friction for a long time. This matter can only be reported back, and let the 3rd Hokage make a decision. Then he lifted his 8 gates ninjutsu state. The whole person looked a little tired. After all, this move is too harmful to the body. Looking at his students, their performance this time can be said to be quite good, especially Takashi. His performance is beyond his imagination. At that moment, he even regarded him as Minato Namake's, and there is even a trend of the Yangtze River behind pushing the front wave. Might Guy showed a strange smile on his face. I wonder what expression he will have if these things are reported to the third Hokage. It's a bit funny to think about it. You performed well this time. Although this mission is a C level mission, the difficulty has reached the level of A level mission. I will report this matter when I go back, and you will also receive corresponding rewards. Takashi performed very well in this mission. You should also exchange experiences more in the future. After all, there will be many opportunities for cooperation in the future. Everyone nodded and answered seriously. Looking at the situation around, it is not suitable to stay here for a long time, so they prepared to find a more secluded place to rest. After the death of these ninjas, the fog also dispersed. As soon as they left, a figure appeared from the darkness, dragging a long tongue, and narrow eyes looked very evil. He licked the corner of his mouth, and muttered to himself. Takashi, I haven't heard of this name. Could it be some new blood limit? It's really interesting. I thought Sasuke and the Ninetales Jinchuriki were already strange enough, but I didn't expect there would be such a candidate. It's interesting. Then the figure disappeared in the darkness again. At this time, Takashi and his friends also came to a sheltered place, found some wood, and lit a bonfire. Just as they finished their meal, and were about to take a break, he suddenly saw a cute little frog next to him. Because it was all green, and blended into the forest, no one else noticed it. But Gaokawa was too familiar with it. Wasn't it his own frog, the awesome little frog? Hurry up and accept this reward, the system voice said directly. Your baby brought you the Super Soldier Serum. Chapter 9 Great Body. He was a little uneasy when he saw the Super Soldier Serum in his hand. He thought to himself that it was no wonder that frog took so long this time. It turned out that he ran directly to the Marvel world. Not only that, he also brought back a photo. It was a photo of him secretly taking the super serum and taking a photo with Iron Man's father. There was also a photo of the staff constantly looking for the serum. In addition, Captain America had a cute look on his face. At this time, he was not the 7-foot strong man, but the little man who was bullied. At this time, he realized something. He was busy looking at the serum and didn't see that his baby seemed to be injured. He quickly opened the interface. There was an option to heal the wound, but he had to repair it for a while before he could set off again. Carefully take frog back and let it rest for a while. He saved more clovers. This thing will increase with time. At that time, he will equip his baby with more lunch boxes, amulets, etc., and bring back more good things. He turned his mind and looked at the super soldier serum in his hand. This is a good thing. Every team injected this thing and turned from a bullied little guy into a spiritual leader. But the bottle in his hand is very small, probably a concentrated version. After opening the bottle, a very fragrant smell came out. After taking a smack of his lips, it turned out to be a blueberry flavor. But he also had his own concerns. He didn't dare to drink too much at once. If he turned into a 9-foot tall strong man overnight, it would be strange if he didn't get suspected. He drank about 1/3 of it. It took 5 minutes to drink the serum, and the effect began to take effect. The powerful effect was like countless galloping wild horses running around in his body. He wanted to shout out in pain, but his partners were by his side at the moment, so he could only grit his teeth and hold on. I don't know how long it took, but the process finally ended. A pool of water had already flowed out from under his body. It was wet sweat. He panted and loosened his hand covering his mouth. He looked up at the moon in the sky with lingering fear. The light reflected by the full moon shone faintly on his body. Looking at the strong and even perfect body, it is not explosive muscles, but a very smooth beauty with lines, 8 abdominal muscles, perfect tendon meat, and explosive power all over the body. Although it is not as good as the 8 gates, the quality of the body is much better than before. Now he feels that, if he faces the previous senior ninjas again, he can probably easily deal with them, and he will not be exhausted after using them a few times. He looks at his body repeatedly with satisfaction, with a hint of narcissism in his eyes. With this body, who can escape? In addition, his already delicate face, as long as he takes off his clothes, he will be a killer of women. He took out a bottle of clean water from his bag and washed off his sticky sweat. Fortunately, his clothes are relatively loose, slightly strong, and he will not look very weird. This is also due to his lack of impulse to drink the whole bottle of serum. He plans to take the remaining serum in multiple times, little by little. After all, after drinking this thing, not only the muscles, but also the height will change. He will grow more than 10 or 20 centimeters overnight. It is estimated that the medical ninja will take him for dissection. I don't know if I can become as evenly matched with Captain America after drinking all the potions. No matter how strong the opponent is, as long as he fights me, it will be evenly matched. But such a thing is just a fantasy after all. The iron must be hard before it can be forged. He stretched himself and planned to continue sleeping. Seeing that there was no sign of others waking up, he lay down beautifully. At this moment, he suddenly felt the existence of an unnatural light through the reflection of the moonlight and said in a cold voice, "Who is it?" This sentence also woke up the others who were sleeping, and Might Guy jumped up directly. "What's wrong, Takashi? Isn't there someone attacking?" He shook his head. Not sure yet. At this time, under the shadow of the woods in front, a charming guy walked out. His face was obviously a woman's face, but he said this in a man's voice. His long tongue was waving around, which greatly affected the perception. He greeted first. "Long time no see, gay." Might Guy frowned, as if he didn't recognize the guy in front of him, but when a gray spotted python appeared on the arrow of the opponent, he instantly remembered who this guy was. There were only a handful of ninjas who could drive snakes, and there was only one person he knew, that was the former Konoha traitor Orochimaru. He immediately took a fighting stance. "What are you doing here, traitor?" Orochimaru sighed. "Your tone is really sad. Is this the attitude of an old friend who I haven't seen for many years? I just saw that Konoha has a good boy again, and curiosity drove me to come and take a look." Although Might Guy didn't know Orochimaru's disgusting ninjutsu, he knew that he came to Takashi for no good reason. "Since you are so wary of me, I will be sad too, don't you think?" As soon as the voice fell, a huge stone suddenly appeared in the sky and fell heavily towards them. Several people hurriedly dodged and looked up. Not far away, there was a fat man wearing a sumo belt. It was Jirobo, a capable general under Orochimaru. He was looking at everyone with a sneer on his face. At this moment, a distant flute sound attracted their attention. There was a red-haired woman above, playing a strange flute. It was Teiwaya. They distracted the attention of others. Orochimaru turned into a slippery snake and attacked Takashi at a very fast speed on the ground. Might Guy was also a little bit careless and hurried to Takashi's side, but he never thought that Orochimaru's neck suddenly stretched more than 10 meters, trying to bite his neck, but he never thought that Takashi's speed was faster, and his mind was very sensitive. The kunai in his hand flew up and down, and Orochimaru's eyes lit up and hurriedly retracted his neck. If he hadn't retracted it in time, he might not have bitten anyone, and his neck would have been cut. What a great boy. Konoha is really full of talented people. I smell a special fragrance on you. You can't run away. I have already set my sights on you. Your body will be mine sooner or later. This time is just a greeting. We will meet again sooner or later. After speaking, several people hid in the darkness again. Might Guy hurried to Takashi's side. "Are you okay? Teacher K, don't worry. I'm fine. That guy's speed can't hurt me." Seeing that he looked very calm, Might Guy also breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that you are worthy of it, Takashi. Chapter 10. The serum works. The third Hokage's suspicion. In fact, Takashi was not as calm as he appeared. When Orochimaru stretched his neck, his heart skipped a beat, because he knew very well what would happen if he was bitten. He quickly increased his attention by 120%, and it was not so simple to resist when resisting. It is well known that Orochimaru's neck is very flexible, and his attacks are very strange. At the moment he made an estimate, Takashi simulated in his mind the changes that it might make in reality, and he used bitterness with both hands to block all his attack routines in an instant. That's why Orochimaru was so surprised at that moment. You know, even the Sharingan can't do this kind of prediction skill, otherwise, the second pillar would not be bitten by Orochimaru. This is all thanks to the help of the Super Video Serum, which gave him a very powerful computing ability and prediction measures, because the serum gave him a lot of combat experience, directly turning him from a practical rookie into a battlefield veteran. It's just that his psychological quality needs to be improved, and he can only do it through continuous fighting, but even so, the rich combat experience brought him subconsciously made his reaction very fast. After this action, several people did not dare to stay any longer. Who knows what monsters will attack them if they continue to sleep. It is better to travel overnight and return to Konoha as soon as possible to feel at ease. Others have no objection to this. It happens that the moon is round tonight, and there are no clouds at all. It is perfect weather for walking at night. On the other hand, Orochimaru and his companions are not in a hurry in the forest. They are very familiar with this place, and are not in a hurry at all. Orochimaru is still thinking about Takashi's perfect body. Because his whole body organs are similar to those of a snake, he does not need to see it at all. With his perception, he can feel the other party's physical condition. Although it is not 100% accurate, it has a very high accuracy rate. That is definitely a perfect body that surpasses the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. Moreover, when Takashi launched an attack to block him, he didn't even make a seal. It was clearly a physical attack. How strong a physique must be to be able to perform it. And that strong reaction ability, making the correct judgment within 1 second, and blocking his attack route. This kind of accurate judgment, even he may not be able to do so. His eyes were in a frenzy, and Jiroba beside him was a little confused. Lord Orochimaru, is that kid really worthy of your attention? Why does he seem so ordinary during the summer vacation? There is nothing too special about him. He doesn't even have a blood limit. Compared with Akamimero, he is not a little bit worse. Teuer also had the same doubts, but she didn't ask. She believed in Orochimaru 100%, and the Lord had his own opinions. Orochimaru was in a good mood now, so he simply said a few more words. What do you know? You can't just look at the surface. This world has many things you don't know. For example, the boy just now, his body is beyond the blood limit. After saying this, the two were shocked. Just relying on that boy just now. Seeing the surprised expressions on their faces, Orochimaru laughed sinisterly. Just wait, I will have this body, and become the strongest existence. At that time, I will return to Konoha with the strongest attitude. The two shuddered at this hellish voice, knelt down together, and the sweat on their faces kept dripping. The forest at night made their existence even more weird and creepy. On the other side, because my guy and his team traveled overnight, they returned to Konoha at the fastest speed. After seeing their village, several people couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This mission was too dangerous. A C level mission was turned into an A level. I hope that there will be fewer such things in the future. It is really unfriendly to the heart. As soon as they returned to the village, Might Guy asked them to disperse and go home to rest first, and then return to school to continue training 3 days later. Ninjas also need time to relax, otherwise they will collapse mentally. For example, Jiraiya and his friends writing books is just a way to vent. Might Guy did not rest. He had to report the mission as soon as possible. He wanted to see what the Hokage could say this time. But even if the Hokage wanted to take his students away, he would not let go. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. The slightly old voice of the third Hokage came from the room. Hokage, this mission has been completed, but something is a little strange. The other party is not a C level mission like the mission report, but a powerful team with 5 Jonin and 4 Chunins. The mission level is enough to reach A level. After saying this, the third Hokage also stopped the work in his hands and looked up at him in surprise. What's going on? Is the information from the intelligence organization wrong? Such things rarely happen. How about your casualties? How many survived? When he spoke, his tone was a little heavy. Facing such a team, he was not surprised, even if only Might Guy survived. 5. Oh, so it's 5. That's a pity. Wait, what did you say? I remember there were only 5 people in your class, right? Doesn't that mean you had 0 casualties? Might Guy nodded with a little pride. That's right, we officially had 0 casualties this time. No one died, not even injured. The third Hokage was a little surprised and continued to ask, what about the other side? 4 Jonin, 4 Chunin were killed, the leader was killed, and 1 escaped. The third Hokage exclaimed, this is impossible. Since the other side sent us information that could confuse us, they must have made all the preparations. How could so many genin in your class escape unscathed? Speaking of this, Might Guy's face was quite proud. This is thanks to Takashi, a student in our class. He killed 3 Jonin and 2 Chunin by himself. The third Hokage opened his mouth, a little unsure if he had heard it wrong just now. Could this kid really be the reincarnation of Minato Namikaze? No, even Minato didn't have such ability back then. He might have taken it as a joke the first time, but he wouldn't take it as a joke the second time. K is not a guy who likes to joke. Speaking of which, he is somewhat interested in the little guy. Well, since you are so satisfied with your disciple, call him over and let me take a look. Although I may not be able to give any guidance in other aspects, I'm still confident in ninjutsu. Chapter 11 Dangerous Trial, Encounter with Hinata. The third Hokage was quite confident when he said this. Although he was a little modest, he couldn't hide the pride on his face. Speaking of Konoha, he was not the strongest among the Hokage, but he was probably unmatched in terms of knowledge of ninjutsu. After all, he could use 5 different types of ninjutsu. In this aspect, almost no one in Konoha could match him. It was more than enough for him to guide a genin. Of course, if this genin was not Takashi, Might Guy was also a little excited. Since the third Hokage became Hokage, he no longer personally guided others. It seemed that Takashi was also blessed. On this side, Takashi had just returned home and turned on his system. He saw the little frog jumping in the pond, jumping left and right around the clover, which was so happy. If you catch a female frog according to Takashi's personality and pair them up, it's a pity that the system does not allow this. Frog, it seems that you can only bear the pain of being single alone. When I'm no longer single, I will give you more wedding candy. Not long after entering the room, before he even had time to sit down, there was a knock on the door. He opened the door and saw that it was Might Guy. He was a little confused. Didn't they say they were going to disband? Why are they here again? Anything else, Mr. Gay? Might Guy smiled meaningfully. You are very lucky. I told the third generation about your situation. He was very happy and wanted to meet you in person. Maybe he could even give you some guidance. You know, those who have been guided by him have all become successful. For example, the 3 ninjas of Konoha are all powerful ninjas known far and wide. Takashi covered his face. He had forgotten about this. Mr. Gay was too straightforward. He would tell everything and didn't know how to hide anything. Forget it, just say it. It's not something that can be exposed. As long as he doesn't do anything that damages the interests of the wood industry, his safety should not be threatened. If you just hide, it will arouse suspicion. The spies of the Anbu and the Root are all over the village. It is impossible to hide. The 2 came to the Hokage's office. The third generation looked straight at everyone, especially Takashi. His eyes were fixed on him. The atmosphere became a little tense for a while. Might Guy quickly eased the atmosphere. Third generation, I brought the person to you. You don't have to look at him like that. The third generation glanced at him and didn't say anything. Instead, he continued to look straight at Takashi. After a long while, he said leisurely, I heard that you killed 3 Jonin and 2 Chunins by yourself, right? Takashi nodded calmly. It's true that heroes emerge young. This achievement has surpassed many powerful people in history. At least none of my stupid apprentices can compare with you. The stupid apprentices he was talking about were naturally Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru. Then the third generation suddenly changed his tone and said coldly, tell me, what is your purpose in coming to Konoha? Otherwise, I will not let you go, even if you are a child. Hearing the Sandaime say this, Might Guy immediately became anxious. Sir, is there a misunderstanding here? Shut up, Gay. It's normal that you can't see some things. I'm asking this kid, tell me your purpose, otherwise you know the end. Takashi didn't hesitate at all, but looked directly into Day's eyes. I'm a Konoha man, and everything I do is for Konoha, that's all. The Sandaime suddenly slammed the table. I'm asking you one last time. If you don't tell me, I will kill you now. Takashi was neither humble nor arrogant. If the Sandaime doesn't believe it, you can do it. I, Takashi, really have nothing to say. I was born a Konoha man and I will die for the soul of Konoha. Even the Sandaime was moved by this sentence, and his eyes twitched unconsciously. Gay really couldn't stand it. Sir, I'm willing to use my life to guarantee that Takashi is definitely not a sap sent by other villages. If anything happens, I'm willing to take all the responsibilities. At this time, the third Hokage suddenly sat down, and his face returned to the old grandfather next door, as if nothing had happened just now. Gay, there is no need to be so excited. Your disciple is not bad. Regardless of his strength, his character is not simple. If you train him well, he will definitely surpass my stupid disciples. This reversal made Might Guy stunned. Why was the third Hokage so nervous today? He was angry for a while, and then calmed down. He was a little confused. But Takashi's heart was like a mirror. What a show of power. Since he was not born and raised in Konoha, he had blood from outside in his body, so he naturally would not believe himself 100%. The words just now were also a warning and trust. If you can serve Konoha well, then you will be trained well in the future and become a top-notch ninja. But if you dare to betray Konoha in the future, you can also be wiped out directly. It is a combination of kindness and force. However, Takashi would not hold a grudge for such a small matter. People who are too petty will never achieve great things. The third generation did not intend to test his strength here, because it would be the Chunin exam soon, and then it would be clear who was the dragon, and who was the tiger. After the two left the Hokage room, two people wearing Anbu masks appeared, and half knelt in front of the third generation very respectfully. These two were the Anbu of Konoha. The third generation pondered for a moment. When you have time, you two should pay more attention to that kid. Although I have not tested his strength, my intuition tells me that he is not simple. If he can be used by our Konoha, it would be even better. If not. Before he finished speaking, the two understood what the Hokage meant and disappeared in a flash. The third generation looked at the Hokage rock outside the window and fell into a period of contemplation, not knowing whether his decision was good or bad. After telling this, it was already late, and he planned to eat something before going back. Passing by Chiraku ramen, he was attracted by the strong smell of pork bone soup, and the greed in his stomach dragged him into there. At present Chiraku ramen has not yet developed into a large store in the back. It is just a simple door curtain, half open on the street. As soon as I entered, I found an unexpected gain. Hinata's class was actually eating here. You should know that the Hyuga family's family education is very strict, and she is basically not allowed to go out alone to eat outside. Their teacher Kunoha is also here. It seems to be a class team dinner. At this time, Hinata also noticed Takashi's arrival, and she was a little embarrassed to say hello. The others were still children at this time, and could not see anything, but Kunoha was an adult. Looking at the state of the two, a barely perceptible playful smile appeared on her face. Chapter 12 Hinata was so shy that she almost fainted. Kunoha urged Shino and Kiba to eat faster. Shino was quite obedient and didn't ask too much, but Kiba didn't understand. What are you doing, Kunoha? We haven't eaten enough yet. Kunoha slapped her forehead. Her two straight male disciples were really stupid. They were the same age, but Takashi was already dancing with girls, while Hinata's face was as red as a cherry. Stop eating. Let's go. The teacher will treat you to barbecue some other day. Hinata, you continue eating first. Kiba and Shino, come out. I have something to ask you. The two of them were not very willing to go out. They were halfway through the meal, and this feeling was really a bit disappointing. However, as a woman, Kunoha still liked to help others. She ignored the two people's mood of not having eaten enough and gave Takashi a look that really meant a lot. The latter also nodded in understanding, showing a hint of gratitude. It was really a godsend. Takashi sat next to Hinata without saying a word, ordered a bowl of soy sauce pork bone ramen, and ate slowly. The two of them just quietly enjoyed the time together. Although they didn't speak, it seemed so quiet. Young love is like this, although a little clumsy, but very sweet. Knowing that the two had finished eating, Takashi rushed to pay the bill, which is what a man should do. The weather was slowly getting cooler, especially now that it was late. He took off his clothes and put them on Hinata's shoulders. "I'll take you home." Hinata nodded gently, and in a mosquito-like voice, she squeezed out her HMM from her cherry mouth. Both of them subconsciously slowed down their pace, fearing that they would disturb this beautiful time. Suddenly Hinata said, "I heard that your mission this time was very dangerous, and you also dealt with several Jonin alone. It's amazing. No need to think, this must be what Niji said." For Takashi's sudden and unexpected situation, he must report to the main family to see what attitude he will take at that time, whether to win him over or something else. Takashi didn't think so. Fortunately, it's not only my own credit, but also the help of other companions, and Teacher K also made a great effort. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't be able to get out at all. Hinata responded with a sweet smile after hearing his humble words. No one doesn't like the person they admire to become powerful, and even Takashi is so powerful. Hinata also has a little pride in her heart. The two walked into a park, and Takashi suddenly had an idea. "Do you want to go in and sit for a while?" The moonlight was reflected, and there was a romantic atmosphere in the park. The two sat on the swing. Hinata began her memories, and Takashi was like a loyal listener, with a smile on his face, looking at the beautiful profile with deep affection. It took Hinata a long time to react. "I'm talking all by myself. Sorry to make you laugh. Do you think I'm nagging?" "No, I just feel that I'm lucky to be here with you." While talking, his hands were not idle. He grabbed her hand, resisted slightly a few times and acquiesced. Hinata's hands were as soft as jade. The two looked at each other, with the moon as their background. They gradually approached each other, until they could feel each other's breath. Hinata closed her eyes involuntarily, but she didn't wait for a long time. After opening her eyes, she found Gyokaro looking at her with a playful look on her face. Her little face was red, and if there was a crack in the ground, she wanted to get in immediately. But Gyokaro had no intention of letting her go. "Hinata, why is your face so red? Why did you close your eyes just now?" After saying this, the only defense line left in her heart was completely gone, collapsed, and shattered into slag. Hate, you are the most annoying. I will ignore you." She stood up and was about to leave, but Gyokaro was quick to grab her wrist, pulled her into his arms, and pecked her lips gently. "How is it? Are you satisfied with this?" Chushan's two eyes began to spin back and forth like mosquito coils. His face was already red enough to break through the sky, and there was even a trace of heat above his head. Damn, my lethality shouldn't be that great. "Hinata, wake up. Are you okay? This little girl is too shy. She became like this after just a kiss. It seems that there is still a long way to go." After a long time, Hinata slowly woke up. When she woke up, she jumped out of Takashi's arms like a little rabbit, covered her face, and ran away without saying a word. Takashi had a smug look on his face. It seems that the charm of this uncle is still as good as before. He was also a veteran in the love field back then, and he was also good at these things. But at this moment, the smile on his face slowly converged. "Ninji, how long do you want to see? It's not a good habit to peep at others, let alone the princess of your master's family." A figure slowly walked out. It was Hyuga Niji. In fact, Takashi had already discovered him just now, but he didn't point it out. Of course, he didn't have the habit of disgusting people in front of others, but the atmosphere was so exciting that he couldn't help himself. Besides, Hyuga Niji hadn't been here for long, so he probably just watched the end, which didn't affect him much. Takashi saw Hyuga Niji walking towards him with a serious face, and thought he was going to challenge him again. He didn't mind teaching this guy a lesson, but this time he would better control the strength of his hands. But what he didn't expect was that Hyuga Niji came close to him, suddenly bowed 90 degrees, and said in a very sincere tone, "I have always been unreasonable. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble." If he provoked him, Takashi would not be afraid, but this situation made him a little confused. According to his understanding of Niji, this kid is not a guy who can be submissive. He is a stubborn person who can't be more stubborn. Now he apologizes to him, which is amazing. If Shianshin and Zayoli saw this scene, they would probably be shocked. However, Takashi was very generous with his apology. After all, this was already a victim, and he was living a very painful life. There was no need for him to care about anything with him. It's okay, it's just a small matter, I don't take it to heart. However, this also made Takashi feel a very simple truth. In the ninja world, strength is king. If you are strong enough, you can gain the respect of others. It's that simple. Chapter 13. Itachi Uchiha has doubts. But then Takashi thought about it and roughly figured out the cause and effect. Basically, Neji informed the head of the family about his matter. After the head of the family unanimously considered and involved interests, they decided to let Neji apologize to them. They couldn't offend a future strong man. At least the potential he showed was more interesting than the future Neji. This apology was probably not sincere, but it didn't matter whether it was sincere or not. Sure enough, Neji's eyes suddenly fixed. Although I did something wrong before, I will definitely train harder in the future to surpass you. For this kind of thing, Takashi said that you are welcome at any time. You can surpass me now, of course, if you can beat me. After all, the two are still in the same class. They will see each other every day. It's not good to make it too awkward. What's more, he and Hinata are from the same family. If it really makes it too awkward, it will probably affect the relationship between the two of them. I thought that tonight's matter was over, but unexpectedly, as Nia appeared. It turns out that the famous Hyuga clan is so spineless. I didn't expect that you, Neji, would apologize to someone, and to this cowardly guy, an ordinary person with no special skills. It seems that the Hyuga family has gradually fallen. The person who came was Sasuke, who was also a famous Konoha Chuninbao patient in the late stage. At this moment, he was looking at people with a very disdainful look. Neji and Sasuke have always regarded each other as rivals. At this time, Naruto has not fully demonstrated his potential and is not very worthy of Sasuke's attention. At the same time, Hyuga Neji, who has the same powerful eyes, is of course regarded as a rival. As for Sasuke's attitude, it is also due to Takashi's previous behavior, because he did not have any special skills before, and his talent was not outstanding, and he was even a little stupid. Except for being a little smooth in dealing with people, he could not find any advantages. However, this kind of smoothness is not recognized in the ninja world. Instead, it is regarded as a cowardly act by people like Sasuke and Neji who are quite arrogant. Therefore, Sasuke's attitude towards colleges and universities has always been even more disdainful. What's the use of blindly working hard? Without talent, it's useless to work 100 times harder. Ningsi was quite angry when he heard Sasuke's words. What did you say? Do you really think I'm afraid of you? You are the only one left in the Uchiha clan, and you dare to speak so arrogantly here. This sentence directly hit Sasuke's sore spot. Usually, other people in class 7 would try to avoid this topic, but now the two of them are confronting each other and don't care about anything. As for Takashi, he was directly ignored by Sasuke, and his presence was basically no more than air. Sasuke took the lead, and a very dazzling lightning flashed in his hand, like thousands of birds screaming, and the black night suddenly became as bright as day. It rushed at a very fast speed, and the powerful electric current spread out, flowing a deep gully on the ground. It was Kakashi's personal teaching, the Thunder Shield Chidori. Faced with such a strong attack, Ningsi was not vague, and directly put on the posture of Bagua Palm, intending to withstand this move. The Chunin exam is coming up. If anyone doesn't show any flaws, they will be defeated. Of course, they will be greatly affected during the exam. Takashi frowned. If something happened here, he would be held responsible. Whether the two of them live or die has nothing to do with him. If he is taken with him, he will not be willing to do so. A golden flash rushed forward, and the body turned into light particles. The two of them only saw a golden light in front of them. Both of them felt that their wrists were strangled, like a pair of pliers. After the blessing of the Super Soldier Serum, Takashi's physical fitness has far exceeded that of his peers, and even Rock Lee can't compare to him. Sasuke's eyes gradually changed from puzzlement to horror. He actually blocked his and Neji's moves at the same time, and it seemed that he was at ease. He didn't use his full strength at all. The most terrifying thing was that he didn't see why his wrist was grabbed at all. What an amazing speed and strength. In addition to his teacher Kakashi, Takahashi was the first person that Sasuke couldn't see through. His voice was trembling. He didn't understand why the guy in front of him, who obviously had no special power, gave him a pressure as big as a mountain. He felt powerless. How could this be possible? The person he had always looked down on was actually someone he could not surpass. This psychological gap made Sasuke unacceptable. On the other hand, Neji was much calmer, as if it was natural for Takahashi to stop the two of them. There was no ripple on his face. Compared with the previous situation of killing the Jonin in seconds, this was already a piece of cake. If Sasuke was told about this, his expression would probably be even more exciting. Sasuke said nothing, staring at Takahashi with his eyes, trying to see something from his face, but unfortunately, no matter how he looked at him, Takahashi looked indifferent. I don't care if you two want to fight, but don't do it here. After saying that, he loosened the wrists of the two. Sasuke was obviously dissatisfied. Just when he was about to fight again, he was stunned by Takahashi's cold eyes. The meaning was very clear. If you still want to fight, then try with me. Then, he said something inexplicable, which puzzled the two of them. How come there are crows crowing in this awful weather today? It's really unlucky. Don't let me see them. Then he snorted coldly and walked towards his home. Sasuke and Neji looked at each other. There was not even the sound of wind around, so where did the crows come from? How did he hear it? It was inexplicable. The two looked at each other with hostility, but they had no intention of fighting. Takahashi's move just now had calmed them down. It was not worth it to fight for some unnecessary things and delay the subsequent Chunin exam. If there was a chance, they could see who was better. I hope you don't lose so easily in the Chunin exam, Sasuke said very pretentiously. I think you are the one. After saying a harsh word, he seemed to feel a lot more comfortable, and the two left in opposite directions. On the roof not far away, a man wearing a red cloud suit, with red eyes, looked 70% similar to Sasuke, but he was more mature, with a cold murderous look in his eyes. He was Sasuke's brother, and another survivor of the Uchiha family, Uchiha Itachi. He was quite protective of his younger brother, but his methods were a little different. It was not the first time he returned to Konoha after becoming a traitor, but he had never been discovered like today, and by a genin. Others did not understand what Takahashi said just now, but Itachi understood it very well, because that was what he said. Chapter 14, The Eve of the Chunin Exam. After Itachi disappeared that night, he never appeared again. Takahashi knew what he was thinking. He probably wanted to see how strong Sasuke was, and find a good opportunity to awaken his Sharingan. The enemy who had destroyed his clan was right in front of him, and the deep hatred would force Sasuke to open it by force. But as long as it didn't delay his business, he didn't bother to care. Over the past few days, as the time for the Chunin exam was getting closer, his little frog was jumping around in the pond again, checking how it was recovering. The injury had recovered by more than 90%, and it was almost enough to travel again. This time he brought a better lunch for his frog, so that it could travel longer. He brought it a portion of osmanthus steamed rice cake, and bought it a snowflake scarf. When the little frog saw what he brought this time, he was very excited. The treatment was much better than last time. He jumped and disappeared from his sight, looking forward to the next harvest. He opened the window, and found that there were already quite a few people on the street. If it was before the Chunin exam, it would not be so lively. Many people have come here one after another. After all, not everyone likes to come here on time. He had seen Gaara and his friends coming the day before yesterday, but Gaara was still out of control at that time. He had an evil aura on him, and the smell of being unfriendly was too strong. When walking on the street, no one dared to approach him within 3 meters. Even Temari spoke to him respectfully, for fear of making him unhappy, like a master and a servant. He came to school as usual. After seeing Takahashi, Chyanshin greeted him first, and then looked him up and down. Is it my illusion or something else? Why do I feel that you seem to have grown taller these days? Takahashi didn't say anything, just smiled faintly. It's normal for boys to grow taller during puberty. Chyanshin obviously disagreed with this statement, but he couldn't find any theory to refute it. At this time, Kei brought Zayoli over. Due to the approaching exam, the two of them took a harder training. It can even be said that when Hishan went out, and when Hishan came back, the training volume was nearly doubled than usual. However, since this training method is not suitable for Tenten, she was simply asked to change to another training method. As for Niji and Takahashi, it was even more unnecessary. One was a genius player, and the other was a demon player. If you don't give Zaioli some preferential treatment when facing these two guys, it would be unfair. Niji also arrived at this time. I don't know if he was stimulated by Takahashi before. Now his aura is more restrained. He is not as sharp as before, but more calm. Tenten came to Takahashi at this time. Since the last mission was over, the relationship between the team has improved a lot. Hey, you have seen all the people who came to Konoha this time. You can't tell who is more dangerous. If I meet them, I can pay attention to them. He didn't expect Tenten to ask him this. Did he say that he was like a ninjutsu master who knew them? But since he asked this, he couldn't avoid the important point. He said something he knew. As long as it was not too outrageous, it should not arouse suspicion. He pretended to be in deep thought. Gaara and his group from the Sand Village are very dangerous. The woman with the fan, if nothing unexpected happens, will be able to restrain you. She should use Winjutsu. Facing the hurricane, your Kune will not work at all. You can think about how to deal with it. The most dangerous one should be Gaara. If you meet him, I suggest you surrender directly. There is no need to struggle. At first, when talking about Temari, he made a very reasonable analysis, but when talking about Gaara, Tenten was a little unconvinced. After all, he had practiced hard for such a long time. Could it be that he had no power to resist at all? He argued a little unconvinced. Is he that strong? He also uses Winjutsu. Takahashi shook his head and said seriously, the big good behind him is made of sand. If nothing goes wrong, it should be the secret ninjutsu of their village. We have never come into contact with it. And his eyes are not ordinary eyes. They are murderous eyes. If you anger him, you may really die. Takahashi was not joking. If it weren't for Zaioli's strength at that time, he might really die on the spot if he didn't have enough strength to beat him. As for someone as powerful as Shianshin, if he angered Gaara, the consequences would be disastrous. Looking at Takahashi's solemn expression, Shianshin kept these words in mind. The reason why he said so much was because he was afraid that his appearance would change the world line. If the distribution was not as it was at the beginning, it would easily lead to uncontrollable consequences. Takahashi already knew the whole process of the exam, but it was not easy to point it out openly. He could only hint at it and let them prepare in advance. Might Guy saw that his disciples were very energetic, but even he did not dare to guarantee that all his disciples could pass the exam. After all, the difficulty of the Chunin exam was still very high. At this time, Zaioli heard them talking, suddenly remembered something, and said, speaking of which, when I went out for training with Teacher K this morning, we saw some very strange ninjas on the street. I don't know which village they were sent from. They all wore bamboo hats and exuded a strange aura. The two who came with him were also very strange. Takahashi raised his eyebrows. He could probably guess who this guy was. It was probably Orochimaru. After meeting them, he changed his appearance again and appeared in a different way. If he remembered correctly, there would be the Sound Ninja team this time, and Kabuto would also appear with a team. But this time he was a little curious about what would happen. If he still wanted to attack Konoha as originally planned, he was really overthinking. Takahashi said to the others earnestly, we need to stay away from that guy for the time being. Before the exam, we should try not to go out at night. Although this is our territory, we still have to be careful and not delay the Chunin exam. Tenten still felt that Takahashi was worrying too much. After all, this was Konoha village. However, Niji seemed to be thinking about something. According to his understanding, Takahashi was not the kind of person who would say such nonsense. There must be a deeper meaning behind it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Death Forest Exam. All the candidates came to a class. This was the first test, and the easiest of the 3 tests, a written test. There was no danger, just answering the questions, but even in this simplest level, many people would be eliminated. The invigilator, Marino Ibuki, looked fierce and frightened many people. There were also many Jonin invigilators sitting around him, looking down at the people below. All the invigilators present are experienced Jonin. Your clever tricks are nothing in front of them. As a ninja, you must challenge openly. Let me be frank. If you are caught cheating, you will be eliminated. Don't lose the big picture for the small. The exam begins now. Takashi and Tenzin, Niji and others sat together, frowning as they looked at the questions on the test paper, because this question did not belong to them at all. The current knowledge scope was beyond the scope. What I just said was to let them cheat in a ninja way. In the class, there are many people who know the correct answers. As long as you get their answers, you can pass the test. However, this seemingly simple way of answering the questions has stumped many people. If there is no special means, you will stop at this level. Tenzin is very smart. He uses the reflective mirror above to constantly check the papers around him, trying to find the correct answer. Zyoli doesn't need to be mentioned. He doesn't know anything at all. Takashi's situation is not much better. The most outrageous one was Niji. He didn't intend to cheat at all. He just picked up the paper and started writing. He was so good at writing that Zyoli was envious. However, these things were not difficult for Takashi. The whole room was full of reflective objects. With his perception, it was easy to see these things. He could see clearly where the light he released passed, but other people would not notice that someone would use light to cheat. But if someone observed carefully, they would find that those strange lights did not conform to the laws of physics at all. Shianshin was sitting behind Takashi. I thought he had no way out. Unexpectedly, it was like a small universe suddenly exploded. He wrote so fast that he almost finished writing at the same time as the first place. Niji hadn't finished writing at this time. His team didn't need to worry about him. Zyoli had Shianshin to take care of him, so it wasn't a big problem. And those who had given answers also needed to stay here for a while to create time for other ninjas taking the exam. So Takashi was the first to hand in the paper in the eyes of everyone's doubts. Because he had been taking the super soldier serum during this period, his body became taller than his peers, which made Ibuki wonder whether this guy was a candidate or one of their own sent to infiltrate the exam. After Takashi handed in his paper, he walked out of the door without paying attention to the confused looks of others. Soon, the others finished their exams. If the people who came out were excited, they must have been confident. If they lowered their heads, they would most likely miss the exam. Seeing that Zyoli and Shianshin were relatively calm when they came out, we knew that they were basically confident that they would pass the exam. During this exam, the third Hokage also told the other examiners to keep an eye on Takashi intentionally or unintentionally to see if there was anything suspicious. However, Ibuki didn't see any suspicion in him, but he saw that this guy had some extraordinary skills. This written exam eliminated nearly half of the people, and Shianshin actually said that this exam was very simple. Takashi did not speak either, but his thoughts were all on Orochimaru. The next test would be the Death Forest. In that chaotic environment, if Orochimaru wanted to take action, coupled with the bastards he had to endure, and the time bomb of Gaara, it would be a bit difficult for him to hold the whole situation by himself. But he was not worried. Even so, he could protect his teammates. He did not believe that Orochimaru would dare to fight him to the death. If he caused chaos in advance, he would not be able to leave Konoha village. On the second day, everyone came to the test site called the Death Forest, which was specially built for this test. There was a high tower in the middle of this place, with a radiation range of about 10 kilometers, and there were 44 iron gates around it. Mitara Shianko stood in front and explained the test rules to them. This exam is very simple. I have two scrolls in my hand. One is the scroll of heaven and the other is the scroll of earth. I have to pass the test only if the team gathers the scrolls of heaven and earth and reaches the tower in the center of the Death Forest within the specified time. But remember, the whole team must be there. If someone is injured or unable to fight, it will be considered a failure. We all prosper together, and we all suffer together. How about it? It sounds simple, right? but I advise you not to underestimate this death forest. It is a 100% restoration of the wild environment. If you underestimate it, you will really die. Everyone is risking their lives to seize other people's scrolls. I will eliminate more than half of you here. After he finished speaking, someone immediately looked at Niji and the others and immediately raised his doubts. Teacher and his team are a group of 4 people. I think this is unfair. In this case, one more person is not just an extra combat power. If it is a battle between teams, it will cause a big change. As for this statement, Takashi had already thought of it and said with a smile, my presence can certainly increase our combat power, but our team is also at greater risk. The more people there are, the more chances of getting hurt. And if you feel that I'm such a threat to you, I can also increase the difficulty myself. Isn't it enough to collect all the scrolls of heaven and earth? Let's double the number. As soon as these words were spoken, there was an immediate uproar. Sasuke frowned and looked over. Naruto opened his mouth and said in disbelief. Under this environment, snatching scrolls is already a very difficult thing. They actually want to snatch double the scrolls. This is basically impossible. Is he crazy? After hearing these words, Teacher Hongdao's eyes lit up. I can't just take your words as talk. A man should do what he says. Well, I will allow the 4 of you to form a team, but you have to seize double the scrolls of heaven and earth. If you don't meet the requirements within the specified time, all of your team will be eliminated. Don't blame me for this. Blame the guy who said such arrogant words. Chapter 16. First encounter with Gaara. Hongdao's words were obviously intended to stir up conflicts within their team, but it seemed to be somewhat ineffective. After saying this, he kept paying attention to Gyokyo's team from the corner of his eyes. But even after Gyokyo said these arrogant words, which increased the difficulty of their victory, he still did not find that other people were angry or unhappy. Instead, they were very calm, which made her feel a little frustrated. But soon he thought that these little brats must be pretending. Yes, they must be pretending. She didn't believe that they could still be united. You know, the death forest will last for 5 consecutive days. Although you are relatively harmonious now, what about when you are in trouble? Will you still maintain this mentality? Thinking of this, she smiled. Okay, now I declare that the death forest assessment will start now. The moment he finished speaking, everyone shot out like a sword and went in different directions, wanting to sneak up on the other party when they were not ready. At this time, there was only one team that was an exception. That was Gaara's team. Temari on the side looked a little anxious, but because of Gaara's presence, she didn't dare to say much and had to obey. From his eyes, it can be seen that he is very confident in this battle. Among all the people present, Gaara only glanced at Naruto from the corner of his eye because he knew a little about the inside story of the Nine Tails. As for other people, he didn't take it seriously at all. Takashi and his group rushed directly into the forest and found a relatively hidden place to discuss how to seize the scroll of heaven and earth from others. Takashi actually had a plan. He didn't plan to confront Orochimaru and his team head on. He wanted to seize the scroll as quickly as possible and then pass the exam. It was that simple. But it's easier said than done. Just as they were discussing, a group of blind guys attacked directly from behind. Because of the previous high-profile form, they had been noticed when they were running. 2 groups of guys planned to unite and kill Takashi's group first, and then decide the winner. Most of the guys who appeared in groups like this were cannon fodder, because the strong simply disdained to form a team to attack. There was no need for Takashi to take action. When they arrived here, Chyanshin immediately placed a lot of detonating tags here. An unlucky guy accidentally touched it, causing a chain explosion. 2 of the 6 people were directly blown up, and the remaining 4 were also dizzy by the explosion, and were instantly killed by Rock Lee and Niji. He easily obtained the scrolls of heaven and earth on them, adding the ones on his side. He didn't expect to get them all together. It was really a blessing from heaven. Takashi shrugged and said jokingly, I originally wanted to make a plan, but now it seems that there is no need for this. Just go to the end. Others didn't expect things to go so smoothly. This was also thanks to Takashi's high-profile speech before. If it weren't for him attracting attention, I'm afraid these 6 unlucky guys wouldn't come to attack. Everyone moved forward at the fastest speed. Neji released his Byakugan throughout the process. Although it consumed more chakra, it was also the best way to avoid the enemy and not give the enemy any time. Of course, there was another reason. Takashi didn't have an absolute answer now. I could repel Orochimaru while protecting them. If they moved at this speed, although they had higher requirements, they should be the first team to reach the tower. As a result, when they were about to approach the tower on this must-pass road, someone suddenly blocked the front. It was Gaara and his team. They didn't intend to take the initiative to rob, and they were stuck in this smoke throat. If they wanted to go to the tower through this road, they had to pass through them. This also saved a lot of effort. As long as they found a team, they could directly rob their things and take them for themselves. Takashi frowned. He remembered that Gaara didn't act like this before. Could it be that his appearance changed his thinking? But they had already come here. If they took a detour, they would need to return to the original route and take a long detour. It would take a lot of time and they might also meet Orochimaru and his team. At this time, Neji said with some doubt, "Why are the three of them standing there motionless? Judging from their appearance, they should have discovered our arrival and are all on high alert. Are they waiting for us to take the initiative to attack?" Takashi suddenly thought of something and shouted, "Everyone disperse." Then he pushed all the people away. At the moment when they evacuated, hundreds of flying needles suddenly fell from the sky and pierced the place where they had just landed. A very ugly puppet made a creaking sound and then released countless flying needles, tracking them. Kankuro is a puppeteer, and his skill in controlling puppets is also outstanding. The reason why the other party did not move is because they had sent puppets out to attack. If Takashi hadn't suddenly remembered, they would probably be injured. Except for Takashi, no one else had seen such a strange thing, and they all watched with great caution. Everyone calm down. This is the puppet controlled by the guy in black clothes. It can only stop if he is defeated. Now that we have discovered it, let's break through directly. Several people listened to the order, and Takashi walked directly in the front, tensing his nerves and ready to particle his body at any time to deal with the enemy's sneak attack. I don't know what happened. Maybe Gaara knew that a single puppet would not be effective against several people, so the puppet did not attack again. The 7 people stood face to face, and Gaara crossed his arms, looking like he was sure of victory. He stretched out his hand and said coldly, "Leave the scroll, you can go." Even Temari and Kankuro on the side had a sneer on their faces, looking down on Konoha's greenhouse flowers. Takashi held a whole stack of scrolls in his hand and walked towards them step by step. Gaara frowned. "You don't need to take it, just put it on the ground." Takashi had a faint smile on his face, and he obediently put the scroll on the ground. At this time, the other party also relaxed, and his eyes were even more disdainful. It turned out that the so-called Konoha was just a group of soft bones. Just when they relaxed to a certain extent, Takashi immediately launched a flash kick, and the whole person turned into a stream of light, like a flash bomb, and blasted out directly. At this time, Chyanshin laid dozens of mirrors around, which was the attack method developed by Takashi during this period of time. It was also an efficient trick developed by Kizaru to save time and effort. The 8-foot mirror. Chapter 17. Uzi, the unyielding man, challenges again. Takashi used the mirrors controlled by Tenten to continuously reflect and shuttle back and forth between the 3 people. As long as they didn't break these mirrors, there was no possibility of catching him. Gaara himself was wearing the sand armor and his movement speed was very slow. He was hit by the extremely fast Takashi at the speed of light. Not only that, he couldn't even see a shadow. In the blink of an eye, he had been hit more than a dozen times. However, the defense of sand was really powerful. If it were an ordinary person, he would probably have gone to see the King of Hell. But at this time, Gaara's armor began to break and turn into fragments. Temari and Kankuro looked like they had seen a ghost. How could a genin have such speed? But what they feared most was not this, but seeing Gaara's mood gradually becoming unstable around him, his eyes full of murderous intent, a beast-like roar in the depths of his throat, and sand began to gather around him. This was exactly the sign that was about to appear. Temari was so scared that she hurried to comfort him. If the tailed beast really appeared, it would not care which side they were from. The tailed beast would only kill all the creatures in front of it. After the two people's constant comfort, Gaara finally calmed down. He just bared his teeth and his eyes were full of hatred, but he couldn't do anything to Takashi. And the most annoying thing was that he was still in the air, constantly mocking. Is this the capital for you to rob here? It's so weak. If I were you, I would have found a crack in the ground to crawl into it by now. He was not afraid of Gaara's tailed beast. If he could really lead to the appearance of Shukaku of sand, it would be great. He could directly rely on his amazing speed to cause a big melee and then take the opportunity to go to the tower. However, it seems that Gaara's tolerance is a little stronger than he thought. At this time, Temari and Kankuro also regretted it. It seems that they shouldn't have chosen this path. They didn't believe that other teams would be so difficult. If every servant of Konoha had this ability, they wouldn't have to play anymore. It's better to go back to the wind country and behave themselves. Takashi flashed and appeared in his team again, but this time his eyes were not as kind as before. What do you think? Do you want to fight us to the death to get the scroll, or do you want to let us go now and live in peace? If possible, he didn't want to fight Gaara and the other three to the death, because Gaara's own strength can be said to be equivalent to several Jonin, and there is also the tailed beast hidden in his body, which can be said to be quite difficult to deal with. I hit him with such a heavy attack, but he only suffered some superficial injuries. However, if he is given some time, he can kill them all. But the problem is, if he kills them, what if Orochimaru takes advantage of the opportunity to sneak in? With a powerful opponent waiting outside, Takashi didn't dare to consume too much of his physical strength. Temari didn't know what she said in Gaara's ear, but she saw Gaara's expression constantly changing, and a look of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. Seeing this, Takashi knew that this seemed to be a possibility, so he didn't urge him, and just waited there quietly. Gaara's eyes flashed with reluctance, but he still had to compromise with reality. Many of his things could not be exposed to the sun, and some of his skills had to be kept in the last test. If he was forced by this unknown guy to enter and exit the last test, he would be in a very passive position. He stood there without moving. This might be Gaara's last stubbornness. Kankuro and Temari stepped aside to make way. This was already a performance of letting them pass. Shianshin, Zyoli and others smiled. They didn't expect to let them pass like this. They thought there would be a fierce battle. This was too good. They were about to leave when a familiar and second-year voice stopped them. I haven't agreed that you can leave yet. The voice came from top to bottom. Several people looked up and saw a dazzling figure who jumped down in a chic manner. Who else could it be but Najiro? Takashi didn't know where this kid got the confidence from, and he dared to provoke him. But at this time, he suddenly remembered that Orochimaru was also in the team. That guy often chose several bodies when choosing flesh. Apart from the result of getting the curse seal on the left side, he really couldn't think of why this kid had the confidence to compete with him alone. He even left Sakura and Naruto behind to come to him. This was because that night had brought too much shock to Sasuke. Why did he train so hard and be easily surpassed by this unknown weak guy? He carried the blood feud of the Uchiha clan. If he couldn't even surpass this guy, what revenge would he talk about? What he didn't know was that not only him, but even his brother was confused that night and didn't dare to approach and left hastily. Neji and Zyoli didn't know about this matter, and their expressions when looking at Sasuke were somewhat hostile, especially Neji. Sasuke humiliated their family that night. Although Neji himself didn't like the Hyuga family, he carried the blood of the family. He could hate them, but he would never allow outsiders to insult them. Sasuke, if you want to fight, I, Hyuga Neji, am always here to fight with you. Sasuke's self-confidence had already swelled to a critical point at this time. He looked down on anyone. The powerful power of the curse seal made him feel like he had been reborn. His strong self-confidence made him forget everything. Just you? You are not worthy of fighting me now. The person I want to challenge is Takashi. If the rest of you don't want to get hurt, get out of here. I have to meet up with my team after defeating Takashi. I don't have that much time to waste on you. After saying this, even the usually good-tempered Zyoli couldn't help but feel a little angry. Why is he so arrogant? Could it be because of the 3 words Uchiha? Kankuro and Temari on the side seemed to smell the smell of opportunity. If they fought each other, maybe they could benefit from it. This was the result they wanted to see the most. Takashi's face gradually darkened. Of course, it was not because of Sasuke's childish provocation, but because he saw Orochimaru in a shadow not far away, with a long tongue sticking out, a strange smile on his face, and a kind of greed flashing in his eyes. This ghost guy really took action, and he even calculated it on his own head. Well, I will show you how insignificant your so-called conspiracies and tricks are in front of me. Don't you want my body? Then let you see what my body really looks like. Chapter 18. Beating Cursed Sasuke. First Order. Takashi took off his clothes, revealing his extremely strong body. He was playing not far away. Seeing this scene, his eyes flashed with brilliance. He could clearly feel that his body was stronger than before. Just like a greedy child seeing delicious candy, he wanted to eat it in one bite. However, the great god was very clear in his mind that it was not the right time yet. He had to wait for Takashi to continue to grow and reach the peak of his strength before seizing his body. By then, he would have an extremely perfect body. Even if it was not a blood limit, such a perfect body was enough to match the gap of others. Orochimaru originally thought that Takashi had reached the peak before, but he never thought that he could continue to grow. But Sasuke didn't know these things. Tenten, who was behind him, covered her face shyly, but couldn't help but sneak a few glances through her fingers. Seeing the almost perfect muscles, she quickly turned her head away. Lee and Niji accidentally discovered that Takashi's body seemed to be stronger. It only took a few days for him to develop like this. Even if he ate fertilizer, he couldn't grow so fast, right? But this was Niji, who seemed to have noticed Orochimaru in the distance, and whispered, "The chakra of that guy in the distance is somewhat familiar. It could be Orochimaru we met before." Tenten exclaimed immediately, "How is this possible? Orochimaru is a Jonin. How could he sneak into this Chunin exam?" Takashi said lightly, "Nothing is impossible. Since this guy can change his body, it is natural that he can hide his aura. Moreover, he has been tossing around outside for so many years and has his own power, so it is not surprising at all. However, he should not attack with all his strength, at least not now." After listening to Takashi, Tenten breathed a sigh of relief. As long as she didn't attack with all her strength now, she would naturally be restrained by other powerful people after leaving the Death Forest. But she didn't expect that Orochimaru would have the courage to attack Konoha openly. Sasuke is now full of confidence and feels that he can ignore all the players of the same period, even his teacher Kakashi, and he feels that he has the strength to fight. Under the horrified gaze of the crowd, a mysterious black pattern surged from his neck to his face. At the same time, his body's chakra continued to surge. Niji was very surprised to see this scene. This form was beyond his understanding. He had never seen such a strange trick. Is this the mysterious ability of the Uchiha clan? Takashi sneered. Uchiha's ability is bullshit. This is all due to Orochimaru. This thing is a curse seal. The person who is chosen has a high probability of death, but if you can withstand the curse seal, you will gain strong power. After hearing this, everyone else was shocked. Even Sasuke was the same. How could Takashi know this? But Sasuke was relieved afterwards. No matter how he knew it, even if he knew it, what could he do? His power was real. He released Reikiri again, at least twice as fast as before, and it seemed that he was at ease. After releasing the curse seal, Sasuke's emotions became even more violent. He ran towards Takashi with a murderous intent, and there was a hint of madness in his eyes. Not far away, Orochimaru was also very happy to see this scene. When Takashi spoke just now, he was too far away to hear it, otherwise, his expression would probably be very exciting. He stuck out his tongue and watched the fight between the two. "Sasuke, release all your strength, use your Uchiha bloodline to test the strongest body for me, and it can be considered a worthy death." Since Orochimaru found Takashi, he felt that other bodies were so rubbish. What Uchiha, what corpse bloodline, all of them were not worth mentioning. In his eyes, this body not only has strong practical value, but also has very strong research value. Why does a human body have such a big change? If he can break through this point, maybe he can break through the limit of human beings on the basis At that time, he can create a new ninja school, or even a new ninja god. Thinking of this, his blood can't help but boil, as if the whole ninja world is surrendering to him. But the idea is beautiful, the reality is cruel. The stronger Sasuke's confidence is, the stronger the frustration of failure is. After the seal was activated, although the speed and strength became stronger, this speed was still like a slow motion playback in Takashi's eyes. He slowly raised his right leg. Neji was a little embarrassed when he saw this scene. This scene was exactly the same as the scene of his previous competition with Takashi. Sasuke was at least 3 meters away from Takashi, but the Chidori in his hand suddenly dissipated, and the whole person flew backwards, as if he was hit by a truck. Sasuke's eyes were puzzled. What happened just now? There was only a flash of golden light in front of his eyes, and then his consciousness began to blur. When he reacted, he was already in the process of flying backwards. With a bang, he directly hit a big tree as thick as a bowl. The pain on his back made his face look a little hideous, and he spit out a mouthful of blood. What kind of ninjutsu is this? This can't be taught to you by Teacher K. Who are you? I'm a genin. Takashi Shin. Temari behind him complained in her heart. Goddamn genin, how could the second pillar stand such stimulation? The black spots on his face gradually spread to his whole body, and the whole person became dark. Even his pupils changed a little, and he looked full of evil. This change surprised Gaara. Such an evil aura could be emitted without the tailed beast. However, due to Takashi's previous operation, Uchiha Itachi did not act rashly, and did not meet Sasuke again, so this guy's Sharingan did not appear. Otherwise, Gaara might be more surprised. However, relatively speaking, although the Sharingan did not appear, Sasuke advanced the evolution of the curse seal because of anger at this moment, and his strength became stronger. Just as he was about to take action again, the voice behind him made Sasuke stunned. Stop it, you are not his opponent. After hearing these words, it was obvious that he was not convinced, but after seeing the figure who was speaking, he immediately calmed down. The person who was speaking was Orochimaru. Takashi, you always surprise me again and again. Don't stop. I look forward to what you will look like in the future. Then he stuck out his disgusting tongue again, smiled evilly, and returned to the forest again, disappearing. After seeing him leave, Geo breathed a sigh of relief, and looked back at Gaara. But some are happy, while others are sad. Kankuro and Temari couldn't be happy at all. It seemed that they would have to give up the first place. Chapter 19 Tip-Off. 3 generations of planning. As expected, Takashi's team won first place, and right behind them was a Sound Ninja team, who were also another opponent of Orochimaru. However, this time they did not challenge Gaara beyond their capabilities, but chose to develop very steadily. In addition, their number of people was very strange, and many people had never seen them. They gained a great advantage during the battle, allowing them to easily obtain the Heaven and Earth Scroll. Gaara and his team naturally passed the exam very smoothly, and no one knew which team of unlucky people met them. When they came out, Might Guy was in tears. He did not expect that his class could actually take first place. This was not only a guarantee of the student's strength, but also a recognition of his own education. As a teacher, the most desired thing is that his students and apprentices can thrive and take on the responsibility. Tenten said exaggeratedly on the side that Gaara from the Sand Village has such a strong murderous aura. If it weren't for Takashi, we would have to wait a long time to get out. And there's also Sasuke from Team 7. He's actually with Orochimaru, and there's an inexplicable weird pattern on his body. Takashi said that thing is called a curse seal. Might Guy calmed down when he heard the 3 words Orochimaru. Wait, what are you talking about? Orochimaru, could it be that he also sneaked into the Chunin exam? Takashi nodded. Yes, it's indeed Orochimaru, and it seems that he has other intentions. He changed another face and appeared in another identity. Teacher Gay should inform the 3rd Hokage. This guy may have some big conspiracy. Might Guy nodded. This important matter must be notified to the 3rd Hokage to prepare in advance. In case of a major incident, the impact on the entire village will be too great. Apart from anything else, those who come to take the exam are all managers of various villages. If they die in the village, then Konoha will be responsible for them anyway. This is absolutely unavoidable. Not only that, Konoha's prestige will continue to decline. It is simply too bad. The more he thinks about this matter, the more scared he becomes. No, you guys rest here first. I'm going to find the third Hokage now. Takashi stopped Might Guy. Anything else? Yes, and this matter is even more important. Only 3 people can participate in the Death Forest. But when the time comes, the 2 guys playing next to you don't look like living people at all. You can't feel the breath of living people at all. I'll trouble Mr. Gay to inform the third Hokage about this matter. It may be related to some important things. Yes, this matter is very important, even related to the life and death of the third Hokage, because this key secret technique is the impure world reincarnation. If it is just Orochimaru, he may not be able to kill the third Hokage. The situation is very different. He can't tell the fact that he knows about the impure world reincarnation now. If so, it will attract too much attention. How can a genin like him know the existence of this secret technique? Might Guy has only heard of these things and frowned. Okay, I will inform the third Hokage of all these things. Thank you for your hard work. A moment later, he rushed to the Hokage's office as fast as he could. This matter was too important, and he dared not delay at all. He wanted to open the 8 gates to go. The third Hokage was also a little surprised to see that it was Might Guy who came. He always felt that this guy came very often recently. What's wrong, Guy? Aren't you supposed to be guiding your students on how to pass the exams? How do you have time to come to me? Seeing that Guy's face was very solemn, the third Hokage also knew that this must be an important matter, and his tone changed. What happened? Yes, my students found Orochimaru during the exam. I don't know what he intended to do to sneak into the Chunin exam. We met him once before, when we were on a mission, but he was just a tentative move last time. I don't know why he did it this time. We should be prepared in advance. After hearing this, the third Hokage frowned. Among his 3 disciples, the one who gave him the most headache was Orochimaru. He was taciturn since he was a child, and he was rebellious when he grew up. He was directly sentenced to leave the village and wanted to completely destroy Konoha. It would not be so easy for him to come back this time. He was not afraid of exposing his identity at all. It seemed that he was sure to win. The third Hokage had a headache. After all, he was not young anymore, and his strength was definitely not as strong as it was back then. After Might Guy left, the third Hokage looked at the ceiling and muttered to himself. It seems that I'm really old. I'm so timid at this time. If I didn't know how to deal with this matter temporarily, I would have taken action myself. But now, although I don't like Danzo, it is better to let him take action at this time. And I don't know what my 2 bastard disciples are doing now. Not long after Might Guy left, a hurried figure suddenly came in. Oh no, Hokage-sama, the 4th Kazekage has disappeared. What? After hearing this news, the third Hokage was so scared that he stood up directly. You know, this exam was held by the 2 villages together. If something happened to the 4th Kazekage in their Konoha village, it would provoke a dispute between the 2 villages. Thinking of the previous appearance of Orochimaru, the whole idea became clear instantly. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his tone became cold. Orochimaru, you are worthy of you. You have become more cunning after so many years. But they were still late after all. Orochimaru had killed the 4th Kazekage a long time ago. The current 4th Kazekage is just a substitute. Originally, Orochimaru wanted to impersonate himself, but with the change of Takashi, he chose someone else to pretend to be the 4th Kazekage. Of course, Gaara is not aware of these things now. At this time, Takashi and his friends were having a dinner party. After all, it was indeed a very gratifying thing to be able to get the first place in the Death Forest. You know, those who can achieve results in this level will undoubtedly become powerful ninjas in the future. Although they are suspected of slacking off, they are still the first after all. Zyoli looked at Takashi's thoughts and asked, "Are you worried about the final assessment tomorrow?" Takashi came back to his senses. He was not worried about tomorrow's assessment, because he basically knew all the strengths and weaknesses of everyone. As long as he gave a little guidance, there would be basically no problem in passing the assessment, as long as he didn't meet someone like Gaara. But in comparison, he was more worried about whether the fake Hokage could withstand the attack of Orochimaru and his friends. After all, the first and second generation Hokage were not vegetarians. Chapter 20 The third test, Zero Lee takes the stage. Countless people gathered at the venue of the third assessment, which shows the importance of this assessment. In addition, many Enbu were deployed in this place. Not only that, many people were looking forward to this game. The draw began. As expected, the result of the draw was very different from the previous one. Gaara did not play against Lee, but against Takashi. Lee's opponent this time was Kankuro. It was really a narrow road for enemies. Temari's opponent was Niji. Takashi nodded helplessly. If it was Shikamaru, there would still be hope of victory. After all, he was a man who cherished women, but if it was Niji, he could only wish her good luck. Although Niji's level was not the best, and could not be compared with those who cheated with Naruto, if it came to the most qualified ninja, Hyuga Niji could definitely occupy a place. He was powerful, calm, and never a saint. Everything was based on the task. At this time, Gaara and others also discovered these things. They didn't expect that there were such things. However, Kanjiro had no expression on this. In his eyes, only Takashi had some ability among the 4 people. The others were not in his eyes at all. This time he was also facing the so-called Zero Lee. He had inquired about it before. This guy even had very little chakra. How could he be his opponent? And the first game was Zero Lee's game. Kanjiro took the field with a very contemptuous attitude. In the entire Konoha village at the same time, there were definitely no more than 5 people who could attract his attention. As for the others, they were just a bunch of rotten fish and shrimp in his eyes. He had experienced countless dangers, and would never lose to these flowers in the greenhouse, especially a fool. At the beginning of the game, Might Guy stood next to Kakashi, and there was also the 7th class next to him. Seeing this scene, Kakashi couldn't help but sigh. Based on his understanding of these 2 people alone, Zero Lee had no chance of defeating Kanjiro, especially since he was a puppeteer. It can be said that he had an advantage against the physical players, who had no chakra means. But he didn't say these words. Talking too much about things that cannot be changed will only make people hate him. However, when he glanced at my guy, he found that he had great confidence in Lee. Tenten asked Takashi in a low voice. Hey, who do you think will win between the 2 of them? Takashi glanced at Tenten. The teacher was right next to him. And you were asking me here? What's more, there was a Konoha White Fang next to him. He was still relatively humble about these things. People who were high profile often died quickly. He kicked the question directly to my guy. Who will win or lose? Teacher K already has the answer in his mind. You just have to watch. Tenten looked at my guy's proud expression and suddenly had an epiphany in his heart. Are you saying that Lee will win? Takashi shook his head. I mean that Lee will hang up this guy from the Sand village and beat him up. After saying this, Kakashi and Class 7 couldn't help but look over, their eyes full of confusion, and it was obvious that they didn't believe this sentence, because they had seen their skills in the Death Forest, which were very strange and powerful. In comparison, Zero Lee's strength seemed so mediocre, and even very weak. How could he beat the puppeteer? Especially Sakura, who almost wrote the 4 words I don't believe it on her face, and Kakashi quickly retracted his gaze. Zero Lee had just come on stage, and looking at the countless spectators around him, he couldn't help but get excited. He didn't know how long it had been since he had a hearty fight. He was always protected behind Takashi, and even he felt uneasy. He urgently needed a fight to prove himself. Kankuro brought his own puppets to the stage, but only his puppet crow was there, and the black ant and the salamander were not brought out. This shows his contempt for Zero Lee. Only when all the puppets appear, can a real puppeteer appear. He looked at Zero Lee and sighed. You are so unlucky that you met me in the first match. It seems that there is no way to continue. You are a class against 3 of us. I don't know how to explain this bad luck. Zero Lee didn't waste time talking to him, and directly took a stance. Konoha Village, Rock Lee. Kanjiro didn't waste time talking. The silk thread in his hand turned back and forth, and the crow opened its mouth and sprayed a lot of purple smoke. This was his black secret technique, the poisonous smoke bomb. Before Zero Lee could react, he released the poison needle in his mouth again. 3 consecutive small-range high-density green poison needles would greatly affect the combat effectiveness, even if they were scratched. Zyroli quickly used several backflips to dodge. His combat intuition was first class, so even in this extremely unfriendly range of vision, he could dodge with his powerful 5 senses. Seeing that his attacks did not hit, Kanjiro frowned. It seemed that Zyroli was more difficult to deal with than he thought. He released another puppet, Black Ant, while my guy, who was watching the battle from above, saw that his opponent was gradually showing his true strength, so he decided to let Rock Lee show his ability, and shouted to the bottom, "Lee, it's time to take off your weight." Rock Lee looked up in surprise after hearing this voice. "Got it, Teacher K." Then, Rock Lee took off some of the weight on his body, but the others were quite disdainful of this kind of weight. Even if the weight was taken off, what would it matter? The gap in strength could not be made up by this little weight. Kankuro was almost amused to laugh. "Ha ha ha, are you going to break the jar? Then I will help you and end this game quickly." Rock Lee did not say anything, but took off the weight and put it in his hand, then suddenly looked at Kankuro and threw it over. "Are you crazy? You want to hit me with this kind of attack? Damn it." He was about to say a few sarcastic words, but he didn't expect his nerves to be affected. He felt an extremely dangerous signal and subconsciously dodged. He saw that the weight that Zyroli had just thrown out passed through like a cannonball, without any sign of stopping, and hit the wall of the examination venue heavily. The people watching the game above even trembled under their feet. After the smoke dissipated, everyone looked at the huge hole in the wall of the venue. Their eyes almost popped out. Even Kakashi was surprised. Could it be that this kid has been fighting with this kind of weight? Ningsi also widened his eyes, and then unconsciously drifted his eyes to Takashi, but found that his face was as calm as water, and then he suddenly realized it. So this guy has known it for a long time. It seems that I'm really a frog in the well. Ningsi couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 21 Zyroli wins. Gaokyo appears. Naruto and Sakura's jaws almost dropped when they saw this, and they pointed at the field tremblingly. This guy with thick eyebrows, is he still a human? If he keeps fighting with this guy? Takashi saw their surprised faces and said in a voice that only he could hear, "Such a small thing makes you surprised. It's just the beginning." After seeing this scene, Temari immediately shouted at Kankuro, "Hurry up and summon the salamander. Don't be careless, that kid is not in the right state." He didn't dare to delay, and quickly summoned the salamander, which was one of his few means of defense. He used the black secret technique puppet shield at the first time, but at this time, he felt a cool breeze behind him, and Temari exclaimed, "Be careful behind you." Kankuro was immediately shocked. What kind of speed is this? He couldn't see his movements clearly. What's going on in this class? Why are they all monsters like this? He quickly pulled the puppet Black Ant to his side and was kicked out by Rock Lee with the Konoha whirlwind. After flying more than 10 meters, the severe pain in his chest made him cough violently. This time, he had put away all his contempt. The guy in front of him was definitely a strong opponent. If he couldn't handle it well, he would probably be defeated. Pulling the 3 puppets to his side, this was his complete form. Some were attacking, some were defending, and some were confusing the opponent. He said coldly, "I have to be serious. There will be no next time for such a good opportunity." However, the facts proved that he was not bragging. With the cooperation of the 3 puppets, even though Zyroli was very fast, Kankuro was completely using a dirty tactic. He knew that Zyroli's only strength was physical strength, so he planned to use tactics to drag him. Neither of them could do anything to the other, and there was a stalemate for a while. Seeing this scene, Kakashi couldn't help but admire it. This kid from the Sand Village is really mature in his tactics. He knows where his weaknesses are, and he also learned about his opponent's weaknesses in advance. He uses stillness to overcome movement. If this continues, Zyroli will be in trouble. The others couldn't help but admire this battle. He was able to practice pure physical skills to such a level. Even if he lost, no one would laugh at him. Shianshin was anxiously jumping on the side. "What's wrong with Takashi? Didn't you say that Zyroli could beat him? If he continues in the current situation, Zyroli will definitely not win." Takashi was entangled and sighed. "Why are you in such a hurry? Let Zyroli play with him for a while." In fact, Kankuro in the field was not at ease either. Only by putting himself in Zaioli's shoes and fighting against him could he know how much pressure he was under. This guy's strength was surprisingly great, and he had to do his best to defend himself every time. Not only that, he had to be careful of being attacked by surprise. A ninjutsu profession that became famous for sneak attacks actually had to be careful of being attacked by a person who specialized in physical skills and didn't even understand how to use chakra. This is simply a great irony. But even so, he still has the confidence to drag Rock Lee down, but this method is not glorious. After seeing this scene, Might Guy took a deep breath, as if he had made up his mind. Lee, now is the time to burn your youth and show your true strength. After hearing this, Zaioli quickly retreated and looked at Teacher K with burning eyes. Don't worry, I will never let you down. Kakashi suddenly thought of something terrible. K, did you pass that ninjutsu to Zaioli? How could you do this? Shouldn't you know the harm of this ninjutsu better than anyone else? K turned his head and looked at Kakashi very seriously. How much do you know about that kid? You only know that he is a person who can hardly use ninjutsu, but his willingness to become stronger is not inferior to anyone. He is a genius, a hard-working genius. Kakashi did not speak, staring at the venue without saying a word. No matter what, he was still a little curious. Could this stupid boy really use the 8 gates? Kankuro even said jokingly, why do you want to admit defeat? It's time to see the gap between the two of us. Takashi almost laughed to death when he heard this. It was so true, but it was not certain who had a bigger gap. Zaioli was standing in a horse stance, blood was flowing rapidly, veins on his forehead were bulging, and powerful power was constantly surging in his body. Renmen, open. With the appearance of these 3 words, the momentum of his whole body suddenly changed. Kakashi exclaimed. He can actually open Renmen directly. K, it seems that you have taught him a lot. However, Might Guy said that it was just the beginning. Zaioli seemed to confirm his point of view. Not only did the burst of power not stop at all, but it became even stronger. Shangmen, open. Shangmen, open. Kakashi was completely shocked. Could it be that he is really a genius? At this age, he can practice the 8 gates to this level. He can definitely be called a genius. The power of the 8 gates shocked everyone present. Most people saw this ninjutsu for the first time. The power increased several times, and it was an all-round improvement. You should know that Might Guy's father used this ninjutsu to directly open the 8th gate of death. As a genin, he should have turned the top ninja team of the 7 ninja swordsmen into a trio. Although the price paid was his own life, such a luxurious record seemed to confirm the extraordinariness of this ninjutsu. Sasuke and Neji were in a bad mood. Can physical skills reach this level? Gaara also frowned. Even he felt a strong threat from this power. As soon as Kankuro saw the 8 gates, he quickly let the salamander protect him and opened the puppet shield. However, in front of Lee, who had already opened 4 gates, all this was in vain. Even Gaara, who was absolutely defensive, could not completely defend against Lee, who opened 4 gates, let alone him. His eyes couldn't keep up with the movements at all, and Zaioli seized the opportunity in the gap and directly performed a full set of Byaolion. Amid the exclamations of the crowd, he won the game beautifully. Kankuro lay on the ground, seemingly thinking about life. He never thought that he would lose so thoroughly here. He stood up with difficulty and walked towards Gaara, wanting to explain something, but couldn't say it. Temari came forward and wanted to help explain, but saw Gaara interrupted them with a wave of his hand. You don't have to explain. It's not shameful to lose to this guy. That terrifying ninjutsu. Even I feel threatened. Go back and heal your injuries. Then Gaara looked back to the field, because it was his turn for the next game. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Shukaku appears, Konoha's flash. Under the expectant eyes of everyone, it can be said that this is the most anticipated battle in the entire game. Gaara from the Sand Village is recognized for his strength. In the Forest of Death, Even if he only showed a little of his strength, he shocked many other ninjas. As for Takashi, he is not favored by others. His presence is so low that many people don't even notice him. Many people think that Takashi is too unlucky this time. If he meets other people, it may be better. If he meets Gaara, it can be said that there is no hope at all. However, in comparison, Xiaoli and the others are very confident in Takashi. Although he was seriously exhausted in the last game, he still insisted and planned to watch Takashi's game before receiving treatment. Hinata was also in the audience, silently cheering for him. "Takashi, you must win, I believe in you." And Takashi seemed to have a purpose in mind. He saw Hinata's position at once, and blinked without leaving a trace. This made her little face slightly red. Then the match officially began. The two of them met like enemies on a narrow road. When enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. Although I'll let you go before, it doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. Show your true strength. If possible, Takashi didn't want to burst out his strength in such a place where people would pay attention. But now he is facing Gaara, who has the strength to rival the Super Jonin, and there is a tail beast in his body. If he lets him go, it would be pure suicide. Takashi had no intention of staying behind. He used all his strength to kick 4 or 5 flash kicks in a row, hitting the sand armor hard. Gaara's defense, which he was proud of, was beaten with countless marks in an instant. Even Kakashi was a little surprised when Xiaoli opened the 4th gate of the 8 gates of the ninjutsu just now, but now he excitedly grabbed the railing in front of him, as if he had seen a ghost. I think you should explain to me what's going on with your disciple, and why this power is so similar to Minato's flying thunder god. Might Guy could only shake his head helplessly about this matter. I also want to tell you, but unfortunately I don't know about this matter, but there is one thing I can be sure of, that is, this power is definitely not flying thunder god, but it is released by him, based on his body. This is impossible. Kakashi denied it directly. No one could imagine his excitement at this moment. He tried to calm himself down, and looked carefully for a while, and found that this was indeed not the flying thunder god technique, because there was no need to make a seal or throw a kunai with a mark. He, Kakashi, was called a copy ninja, proficient in thousands of ninjutsu, but at this moment, he looked for a long time, but couldn't see how Takashi did it. Your students are really talented. Kakashi couldn't help but sigh. The battle below was still very fierce. Gaara's armor had been broken into pieces. The speed of sand sticking could not keep up with the speed of destruction. Blood had been seeping from his forehead. Seeing this scene, his heart was in his throat. Don't turn into a one-tailed beast. Don't do it. If a tailed beast appears here, things will become serious. But there is a saying that goes, what you fear will come to you. You can always believe in Murphy's theorem. Gaara was beaten back step by step, while Takashi was not even touched. It was a one-sided dimensionality reduction attack. Gaara was furious and suddenly slapped his hands directly on the ground. A sense of tremor appeared. Sand continued to gather around Takashi, directly entangled his ankles, and then swarmed up. Sandstorm funeral. This attack was completely aimed at killing people. Xiaoli and Shianshin shouted excitedly on it. Even K's palms were sweating. It was not that he did not believe in Takashi's strength, but that this level of opponent was indeed too powerful. A cruel look flashed in Gaara's eyes. He used this move with the determination to kill. But soon he found that something was wrong. This feeling was not like what he had after killing someone. His confident move missed. Soon, a sharp-eyed audience noticed. Look at the sky. Gaara raised his head quickly, but found that Zhang Enuo had jumped high at some point, with his hands on his chest, looking lazy. I don't know if he was infected by the original owner of this fruit. Flying in the air, drawing countless photons around, emitting countless dazzling light bullets to attack Gaara. The range was so large that he had nowhere to hide, and these light bullets had extremely strong penetrating power. In an instant, the sand shield was hit with holes one after another. Gaara spat out a mouthful of blood. His clothes were already torn, raised his head, and looked at Takashi with hatred. Suddenly, a red light surged from his body, like a sticky liquid wrapped around his whole body. Temari shouted from above. Calm down, Gaara, you must calm down. Don't let him control you. Then, seeing that his persuasion had no effect for a long time, he directly said to the referee, "Admit defeat, we admit defeat." But when Gaara heard this, he shouted, "I didn't lose. If you dare to surrender, I will kill you first." The murderous eyes scared Temari so much that she didn't dare to move at all. The fierce eyes didn't seem to be joking at all. Even if it was a relative, what could it be? She was 100% sure that Gaara could do such a thing. At this time, Takashi finally got serious, and the real enemy appeared. Kakashi saw this scene, and this familiar and evil feeling made him very uncomfortable. Oh no, it's a tailed beast. The Shukaku of the sand in Gaara's body began to riot. We must be prepared. If there is any abnormality, go down and rescue Takashi as soon as possible. Hinata above saw this scene, covered her mouth in fear, and used her white eyes, but found that the terrifying chakra had exceeded her imagination, and shouted at Takashi, "Be careful, Takashi, that guy's chakra is out of control now, it's very dangerous." This kind of thing is very obvious. Gaara is now somewhat out of control, and the prototype of Shukaku is gradually forming around his body. All the sounds around him will make him more manic, and Hinata's voice also makes him very disgusted. Without hesitation, he threw a chakra energy bullet containing the power of the tailed beast, heading straight towards Hinata. Takashi was furious when he saw this scene. His eyes were red, and he used the 8-foot mirror to shuffle back and forth. At the critical moment, he arrived in front of Hinata, held her steadily in his arms, and kicked the energy bullet containing the tailed beast's chakra away with a flash kick. His voice has never been so cold. "I don't care if you are a tailed beast or not, but now, I'm very angry." Chapter 23, Tenjoukumo sword cuts tailed beast, Orochimaru takes action. Takashi held Hinata with one hand. His face was extremely gloomy. The spectator stand above was destroyed, with a huge gap. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, and deflected the chakra bullet. The people watching the fight were also scared. However, the focus of the spectators was indeed different. Some were horrified by Gaara's destructive power, but more people focused on Takashi, because no one could see how he reached Hinata's position in an instant. Yuhi Kurenai also started chatting with the master. She never thought that such a thing would happen during the exam. This was a mistake that had never happened before. She quickly ran to Hinata and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Hinata saw that everyone around her was looking at her, and shyly broke free from Takashi's arms and said shyly, "Teacher, I'm fine." This also made Yuhi Kurenai breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, nothing happened, otherwise she would be embarrassed as a teacher. "It's alright, it's alright. This is indeed my mistake. I didn't expect this to happen. However, this kid from the Sand Village is really rude. He actually attacked someone in the audience. He should be penalized." But Takashi just wanted to teach him a lesson at this moment. What can the future wind shadow do? What can the tailed beast help do? Slowly floating down from the sky, this power made the others stunned. What kind of ninjutsu is this? They have never seen it before. Seeing that the tailed beast chakra on Gaara's body is even more violent, it has been covered with a layer of tailed beast's coat. Takashi's hands suddenly burst into a strong light, and then a sword of light formed by light appeared in his hands. The light particles on it continued to emit dazzling light. This is one of the derivative abilities of the flash fruit, the cloud sword. Due to the injection of the super soldier serum, he can be said to be very familiar with the use of weapons, even this kind of cold weapon. Not only that, even the use of kunai and other shurikens has greatly improved. Kakashi was also quite shocked when he saw this scene. This was indeed not the flying thunder god technique. He could actually use the power of light. Is this really something that chakra can do? The sharp blade of the Shianzangan sword slashed across the ground, leaving an extremely neat cut. This shows how sharp this sword of light is. No matter what kind of tailed beast coat you are, it will cut it without any mistakes. Gaara is most confident in his absolute defense, but after seeing the sword of light, his pupils shrank sharply. This sword revealed the threat of being able to kill him. He simply gave up his most advantageous defense and planned to have a head-on battle with Takashi. But Gaara had one thing in mind, that is, even if he gave up his powerful defense, he could not compete with him in speed. The figures of the two intertwined in an instant, and a trace of blood burst out on Takashi's face. His face was rubbed by the power of the tailed beast, and there were some scratches, but Gaara, on the other hand, opened his mouth and wanted to say something. How could you? Then he spit out a mouthful of blood, and the tailed beast coat that wrapped the power of his body dissipated. Gaara! Temari exclaimed, and quickly jumped down from the audience stand, ran to Gaara's side, and asked anxiously, "Are you okay? How do you feel? Let's admit defeat and stop fighting." Gaara wanted to use his last bit of strength to stop Temari, but found that he didn't even have the strength to raise his hand. He didn't understand how he lost just now. He was obviously blessed with the power of the tailed beast, but he was still vulnerable. Takashi put away the Tensoku sword. He didn't want to use this move at first. This was the move he used. He would definitely catch the opponent off guard, but there was no way. This situation could no longer be hidden. The consumption of this search was very large. Even now, he couldn't help but feel a little tired. If it weren't for the strong willpower brought by the super type, I'm afraid his current state would be even worse. He took out a few soldiers' food pills and threw them into his mouth quickly. He had a hunch that Orochimaru should be about to make a move. Since he had already discovered his plan, if he wanted to continue to implement it, he had to speed up and let Konoha not have time to prepare. As expected, just as the referee was about to announce the result, a violent voice suddenly sounded outside. All the Jonin present were shocked. What was going on? Takashi reacted immediately. If they continued to act according to the rules, the third Hokage would probably not be able to hold on. Although his death would not affect too many things, Takashi thought that at least the third Hokage would be better than Tsunade. At least there would be one more option, and Anzo, the idiot, would not mess around. He said to Might Guy hurriedly, "Teacher Gay, go see the third Hokage quickly. Orochimaru's target may be the Hokage. I will take care of this venue." Gay and Kakashi were stunned at the same time. They didn't know why Orochimaru wanted to trouble the third Hokage, but since Takashi made such an inference, they couldn't pretend not to hear it. However, looking at the many people in the venue, Kakashi hesitated for a moment. "Gay, go and have a look at the third Hokage. I'll stay here to prevent anything else from happening." Might Guy had just left when the people present suddenly fell one after another. Takashi knew clearly in his heart that the sound ninjas were coming to attack. Suddenly, a strong impact hit Gaara, and Takashi fired a laser to directly offset the attack. The people who came were the 3-member team of the sound ninjas. It was Sak who had just made the move. The 3 of them sneered and looked at Takashi and others with ill intentions. Kakashi was not in a good situation either. Many people besieged him together, and Kyuri followed Might Guy out to save the rest of the village. Now, the only ninjas present who could fight were Takashi and Kakashi, who had not yet started the battle. Toss said with a face full of bandages, very pretentiously, "We must kill Gaara this time. Lord Orochimaru will be very happy. Then you can reunite with your father as soon as possible." Hearing these words, Temari was immediately shocked and asked in panic, "Assholes, what did you do to my father?" Faced with such a stupid question, the 3 sound ninjas were already laughing. "Ha ha ha, guess what? You sand village is really unfortunate. The 3rd and 4th generations were assassinated one after another. I wonder which unlucky guy will be your 5th Kazekage." Temari's eyes were red and tears were rolling in her eyes. Kankuro directly used his puppets, and countless flying needles hit them, but they were directly offset by the sound wave impact. "Temari, don't listen to them. Lord Kazekage will never be killed by these villains." Although the words were said decisively, it was not difficult to hear the trembling in his voice. Chapter 24. The 3 ninjas gathered. Sasuke does good things. I don't know why they made everyone faint, but they were not affected at all. Gaara was seriously injured, otherwise how could they tolerate these 3 jumping clowns jumping around there? The 3 ignored Takashi and ran straight to Gaara. In their eyes, Gaara's head was the best way for them to win credit. But they forgot one thing. What is the saying? That a lean camel is bigger than a horse. Even Gaara, who was seriously injured, was not something that these 3 jumping clowns could easily deal with. What's more, there were 3 other people present. In order to quickly resolve the battle, Takashi used the Tenzin sword again, and finally shouted to Temari, "Throw shuriken at me, quick." Although Temari didn't know what Takashi wanted to do, she didn't allow herself to think too much and threw out 7 or 8 kunai. The sound ninja team almost laughed out loud when they saw the soft kunai. This kind of attack that even a blind man could dodge, how could it cause harm to them? But these kunai were not used to attack them, but to create a springboard for Takashi. In the current situation, he did not have enough strength to support him to use the 8-foot mirror, so he could only use these kunai as a springboard to flash back and forth. Obviously, the 3 of them seriously underestimated Takashi's strength. He held the Shianzangan sword, and a golden light flashed, and he shuttled directly in front of the 3 of them. In just a moment, the 3 of them became frozen in place. The arrogant expression on his face had not yet dissipated, and he fell to the ground unwillingly. Toss used his last strength to squeeze out a few words from his throat. Lord Orochimaru will not let you go. After saying this, he died completely, and Takashi's physical strength was now more than half consumed, and beads of sweat appeared on his face. Damn, a few extras still require me to spend so much effort. The appearance of these guys disrupted his plan, and he couldn't help but curse in anger. But he didn't plan to go out. Now Konoha was in a serious mess outside. If he went out now, he would be easily attacked by others. The other guys were almost dealt with by Kakashi. I should go and see how Hinata is doing. I left, but I heard Temura's voice behind me. Thank you for saving Gaara. Takashi turned his head and glanced at me. Thanks should be said by the person being protected. The 4th Kazekage has been assassinated by Orochimaru. Take care of yourself. That was all he could say. After all, there were so many people in Akatsuki and Pain. He couldn't just go out and kill people all over the world to protect Gaara. What happened next depended on his fate. Gaara seemed to be thinking about something. He took a deep look at Takashi's leaving figure and said in a voice that only he could hear, "Thank you, Takashi." Takashi took Hinata to a safe place while others were not paying attention. This place was very obscure and no one should notice it. He had to quickly recover his strength in case of emergency. As for the other guys, Kakashi and the others should be quite comfortable. Even at this moment, this guy didn't even use his Sharingan. After a while, seeing that everything here was almost dealt with, Kakashi used his Sharingan briefly while others were not paying attention because Kakashi did not want Sasuke to see that he had this ability, and he quickly eliminated all the remnants here. At the same time, he remembered what Takashi had said before. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, the 3 of you stay here first. I will go and see what the situation is outside. If there is nothing important, try not to leave here. There are still many people here. However, although he was asked to stay here, Naruto was not a quiet person. The more Kakashi did not let them go out, the more he wanted to go out. Finally, he could not help but leave, and Sakura called him from behind. Where are you going? Teacher Kakashi asked us to take care of the people who fainted here. Naruto said in a very helpless tone. Please, those who should be eliminated have been eliminated. Now shouldn't we go to help other more dangerous people in the village? Or do you feel afraid to leave? Do you want Sasuke? He kicked the ball to Sasuke, looking at Naruto's provocative expression, knowing that this was a provocation, but he couldn't help being very angry. Just go out, I'm not afraid of you. Before Sakura could speak again, the 2 had already disappeared, leaving only their backs. Such willful behavior made Sakura sigh, and she stayed here to take care of others. Sasuke and Naruto didn't know where to go all the way, just went wherever they saw someone in need. Then, they actually saw the figure of their teacher Kakashi. Naruto had a smirk on his face. Sasuke, do you want to know what Kakashi teacher is doing? Sasuke didn't say anything, but just followed in the direction of Kakashi. Now they didn't know that curiosity would kill the cat. They were very far away, and Kakashi was very anxious now, so for a while he didn't notice that there were 2 students following behind him. At this time, above the Hokage room, the 3rd generation Hokage had already changed into his combat equipment, and opposite him stood his most proud student, Orochimaru. But now it is not a relationship between student and teacher, but a life and death confrontation. The unfamiliar face of Orochimaru puzzled the 3rd Hokage, but the gloomy expression and disgusting tongue were very familiar. Teacher, it's been a long time since we last met, but unfortunately, this is the last time we meet. The third Hokage felt mixed emotions. Fighting with his own disciples was the last thing a teacher wanted to see, but he still had to say it with a ruthless heart. You, the traitor of Konoha, are finally willing to come back. Today I will clean up my master. Orochimaru sneered. Clean up my master? That depends on whether you have the ability to do it. As soon as he finished speaking, a rough voice suddenly made Orochimaru's pupils shrink. You disgusting guy are still so rude. After a long time, you talk to your teacher like this? A red figure with long white hair, wooden clogs on his feet, and a huge scroll on his back appeared. It was Jiraiya, one of the three ninjas. Then another green figure descended from the sky, with long golden hair, a hot body and a beautiful face with a pair of slightly vicissitudes of life eyes. It was Tsunade, the last of the three. Orochimaru did not expect that these two guys could come at the same time, but even so, what could he do? His powerful trump card could not be defeated by these three guys. Chapter 25, Impure World Reincarnation. Pressure from the first generation. When they were genin, the three of them were very close, just like brothers and sisters. But as they grew older, everyone's view of the world changed subtly, and Orochimaru became very twisted in the process. His only goal now is to completely destroy Konoha, and he can pay any price for it. Orochimaru sneered. I didn't expect you two would come here, especially Tsunade. You should be very happy next time. Hearing him say this, Tsunade frowned, and she had smelled a hint of conspiracy. She knew Orochimaru's strength very well. They had fought together for so many years, and even fought against Hanzo, the so-called god of ninja. Orochimaru, we know your strength. Just surrender. For the sake of our past friendship, we can give you a lighter sentence. Otherwise, if you fall into the hands of the root, you know what will happen. Hearing the name he didn't want to hear the most, he felt a little crazy. It's too late to say anything now. It's time to make Muyui pay the price. He began to make complicated seals with his hands. After seeing this technique, the third generation frowned first, then exclaimed, and subconsciously wanted to step forward to stop it, but Orochimaru was obviously faster, and didn't give them any chance at all. He slapped his big hand on the ground, and after a burst of white smoke, two vertical coffins appeared in front of everyone. The third generation Hokage muttered in disbelief. Is this the impure world reincarnation technique of the second generation Hokage? Orochimaru, how did you learn it? Of course he would not answer such a question, and he was too lazy to answer it. There was no need to answer a dead person's question. With a bang, the two coffin lids fell to the ground, and the contents inside made the three people present gasp. Although the third generation had made sufficient mental preparations, he still couldn't help but feel his heart beating wildly after seeing it. However, as the oldest person present, he had experienced the most things, and soon calmed down. Although Jiraiya had never seen the two, he could roughly judge their identities through the decorations on the two corpses. Tsunade's eyes were already a little wet, but now was not the time to be moved by the reunion. Since Orochimaru used such a method, there must be a follow-up. As expected, the two corpses suddenly came to life, and walked straight out of the coffin. They were the first generation Hokage of the wood industry, Hashirama Senju, and the second generation Hokage, Tobirama Senju. The pupils of the two had completely turned into the color of 7 black, and there were countless cracks all over their bodies. At this moment, they were looking around with confused eyes. Hashirama Senju glanced around, and stopped his eyes on Tsunade. He touched his chin, and pondered for a long time. He felt that this person was familiar, and he realized. You are Zio Tsunade, right? You have grown so big. No, by the way, how did I come back to life? And you, Tobirama, how did you come back to life too? Tobirama Senju obviously had the same doubts, but then the bodies of the two began to move without listening to the command. Senju Hashirama frowned. This feeling, my god, Tobirama, isn't this the forbidden technique of impure world that you created? How did you use it on yourself? Senju Tobirama coughed awkwardly. Brother, how should I know this? I have been dead for so many years. This matter cannot be blamed on me. If you want to blame someone, you should blame the current Hokage for not strictly controlling him. What's wrong with the monkey? The third generation Hokage has lived to such an old age and has always been respected. No one has called him the monkey for many years. Jiraiya wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to laugh, and almost got internal injuries from holding it back. Seeing them so comfortable, Orochimaru was immediately furious. I summoned you out to fight the enemy, not to chat here. He immediately began to command the two. Senju Hashirama immediately looked at Orochimaru. Although his body was out of control, the spiritual power between his eyes made him feel scared. However, as long as his skills were not released, even if they were the strongest ninjas in the past, they had to listen to him. His body moved uncontrollably, and he attacked the three people on the opposite side. Orochimaru could not completely control them to use their full strength, but even so, the strength of the first and second generation Hokage should not be underestimated. Although he could not use bug-level fairy arts like the Flower Tree World Advent and the Buddha on the top, other ninjutsu were enough for them to deal with, especially the second generation Hokage, who showed no mercy. In this place without any moisture, he could still use a very powerful water shield, causing great trouble to them. The third generation Hokage directly summoned his summoning beast, which turned into a huge stick. Jiraiya had no choice but to summon his summoning beast, the Toad Boss. A huge frog appeared out of thin air, and Jiraiya jumped up. The Toad Boss held a big pipe in his mouth, looked around, and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Little Jiraiya, isn't this Konoha village? Why did you summon me here? It's a long story. Anyway, let's defeat the two guys on the roof first. The Toad Boss drew the long sword from his waist. It's just these two guys, no problem. But before he finished speaking, the second Hokage flew into the air and used a huge water dragon bullet technique to hit the head of the Toad Boss. The heavy body was hit and staggered and fell heavily to the ground. Damn, where does this little guy come from? He can use such a strong water shield ninjutsu in a place like this. Jiraiya scratched his head. I forgot to tell you, these two guys are the first and second Hokage of Konoha. You must be careful. The Toad Boss, who was tricked, was also a little angry. He put away his previous carelessness and flew up with a heavy knife to chop down. Hashirama Senju quickly formed a seal on the spot, and a towering tree rose from the ground, directly fixing the Toad Boss. Just as he was about to continue to attack, a Tsunade flew out and used her strange power to smash the tree to pieces. Seeing that his granddaughter had also become powerful, he couldn't help but feel a little relieved. But the speed of forming seals on his hands was not slow at all. The art of Mingxian Gate, many red gate posts fell from the sky. If they were locked, it would be difficult to break free. Toad Boss rushed forward quickly and chopped Mingxian Gate into pieces with a few cuts. Naturally, he also shouted, "Toad Boss, spit oil." After receiving the order, he opened his big mouth and spit out a large mouthful of fuel oil, which sprayed towards them like a waterfall. Naturally, he also used fire escape above. The fuel oil, like a waterfall, suddenly ignited a raging fire, and a sea of flames rushed towards them violently. This was their combined plan, the Toad Oil Flame Bomb. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.